Simon, thank you very much. Welcome everybody to London Stadium here in East London, and we are ready for West Ham against Newcastle United on this sunny Sunday afternoon in the Premier League. And what an occasion this promises to be as well. The two teams right next to each other in the Premier League table, West Ham 7th, Newcastle 8th, both off the back of brilliant results in their respective European competitions this week as well. West Ham winning in Germany against Freiburg, Newcastle at St James's Park under the lights, absolutely thrashing PSG. So this is set up beautifully, Matt Jarvis, for what should be a very entertaining afternoon of football. Hello to you.
Hello to you. Absolutely. What an incredible week of football both these teams have had. Obviously, West Ham, they're used to being in Europe now. A couple of seasons been in, winning the trophy last year in the competition. So this season, you just feel like there's a little bit better from the team, the way that they're set out, the way they're structured. But then you watch the Newcastle game and you just see the atmosphere and the players, the passion and the desire that they're putting in last-ditch challenges and tackles in the halfway line, and the crowd, the roar. So both teams will be really looking forward to this, and hopefully no hangovers for either team.
Well, here they come onto the pitch now, West Ham and Newcastle United. West Ham in those familiar claret and blue shirts with bubbles swirling around above their own heads at the moment as they turn and face us up here, the two teams. And Newcastle United, who will feel like they are walking on cloud 9 at the moment, not just off the back of that PSG win, but of course it was only a couple of weeks ago that they beat the champions of England, Manchester City, in the League Cup. Everything at the moment is black and white for them. And now, this afternoon, these two teams seeing if they can push themselves a little closer to the top 4 in the Premier League table. Let me give you the team news then from both. For West Ham United, it's the same 11 that started against Sheffield United in their last Premier League game. They made 5 changes in the week for that Europa League game against Freiburg, but they've gone back to the 11 that beat Sheffield United here 2-0. So it's Areola in goal, a back 4 of Sofal, Zuma, Agard and Emerson. The two holding midfielders are Soucek and Alvarez, and then Bowen, Ward-Prowse, who's had such a brilliant start to his Hammers career, and Lucas Paquetá, and leading the line, Michail Antonio, who is fit to play. He missed that Europa League game during the week with an adductor problem. For Newcastle, there are quite a few injury problems, and adding to that list today, there's no Anthony Gordon, who is missing because of suspension. So it is one change for Newcastle from their last league game, which was a victory over Burnley. It means that Elliot Anderson comes into the team to replace Gordon. So Pope is in goal, Trippier, Lascelles, Cher and Byrne the back 4, as it has been now for the past few games. Longstaff, Guimaraes and Tonali in midfield, Almiron and Anderson either side of Alexander Isak up front. And the good news for Newcastle, just to ease their injury concerns a little bit, is that Callum Wilson, who has such a fabulous goal scoring record against West Ham United through his career, is back on the bench for Newcastle. This is set up to be entertaining, set up to be fast flowing, though West Ham won't want to remember the last time Newcastle were here back in April, because they completely took them apart. They won here by 5-1.
Yes, I mean the thing is, the West Ham team is completely different from last season. The structure, the passing style, even the personnel. So this game is going to be really entertaining. I think both teams have. West Ham have scored 9 in the last 5 games. Newcastle are second in the league for scoring most goals. It's all written in the stars for it to be a 0-0, isn't it? But it should be such an entertaining attacking game as well. Both teams like to attack. Both teams like to put the ball in the box, and we've got 2 centre forwards that want to get on the end of everything. So it should be a cracker.
I'm just looking, Matt, down at those Newcastle United players, because obviously you're obviously a former West Ham player, so you know all about this particular stadium, and you do some work here as well on match days. But you're so far from the pitch here in our media position, and the Newcastle team in the week, because of UEFA rules, they had those numbers very clearly imprinted on the back of their shirts because they can't have the stripes. But of course in the Premier League they do still have the stripes, so it's so difficult at the best of times to distinguish numbers. You've got absolutely no chance from here, so we're going on boot colours, we're going on gait, we're going on hair colour, all of that this afternoon to try and exactly work out who is in possession for Newcastle United. It should be relatively straightforward. We're about to get underway. So West Ham in those claret and blue home shirts with the claret shorts and the blue socks are going from left to right as the players take the knee to continue to remind us there is no room for racism in football, in any sport, in society. And away we go with West Ham sending the ball back from Ward-Prowse to Aguerd, who lifts an early long ball forward up to the edge of Newcastle's penalty area, and it's headed away by Jamal Lascelles. And Newcastle United going from right to left in the black and white shirts, the black shorts and the white socks, and they have an early free kick, and the ball has been thudded into the ground by Lucas Paquetá in a fit of anger, and he's going to be spoken to by Peter Banks, but under the new rules really he should be booked for that, and he hasn't been booked.
Exactly. I was very interested to see if he was going to be, because literally first 10 seconds of the game, if that's 5 minutes later, he's getting booked for that. So you're going to have to set your stall out early, these referees.
I am surprised actually that Peter Banks hasn't dipped into his pocket there, because the rules are the rules. It doesn't matter if it happens 10 seconds in or 10 seconds from the end of the game. Lucas Paquetá is very lucky not to get an early caution there. That's
something that West Ham can't afford either. He's a vital player. He's shown his qualities in these, well, especially this season, but you see clips of him in Europe, and he's holding off 4 players, he's twisting and turning, still keeping the ball. His skills, his creativity, he's got everything, so he's vital to this West Ham team.
I enjoyed David Moyes' comments this week saying that sometimes Lucas Paquetá drives him absolutely mad, but he says he's a maverick, and I don't mind that at times.
I think you've got to let him do what he needs to do.
West Ham 0, Newcastle 0, 90 seconds in at London Stadium, and Newcastle have it with Jamal Lascelles in their back line, who has now started the last 4 games for Newcastle United. It's 2 years since he last did that, so he'll be very appreciative for his run at the team at the moment in the absence of the injured Sven Botman. And now Jared Bowen down the right side for West Ham, inside Newcastle's half. He's got it again, Bowen, and it's well cut out, and Newcastle will be able to sweep it up and send it out towards Trippier on the right hand side, and with nothing on for him, he nods it back to his goalkeeper Nick Pope in the all blue.
Well, you can see West Ham, they're looking to get on straight up and make sure they're putting pressure high up. Bowen wins the ball back and drives forward. It's something that they need to do. They need to start well at home. Last season was very different, but this season they've started well.
Clipped forward down the left-hand side by Dan Burn, one of the heroes from that win against PSG on Wednesday night, with his goal, which took an age to determine whether it was going to count or not. And then a ball out to the far right-hand side where Trippier collects it in the blazing sunshine in the capital, and back with Lascelles, who is about 5 yards or so inside West Ham's half. Lifted down that right-hand side, back towards Trippier again, not too much on, so again it's returned back towards the halfway line. Newcastle patiently keeping possession. 3 minutes in, it's still 0-0, but they have it on the right-hand side with Almiron, and off the challenge of Emerson, it's out for a Newcastle throw.
Yeah, it's good possession from Newcastle. They're just starting to find their feet, pass it round. The right hand side with Trippier seems to be an outlet for them. They like where Paquetá's occupying that left hand side for West Ham. It seems that does he want to be doing that defensive work all of the time? Trippier is going to be running down the right hand side all day, and that's where West Ham are going to have to be careful and see defensively what Paquetá can do.
It's a good little spell of possession at the moment from Newcastle. They're right on cue. Dan Burn has passed it out of their possession, but it's straight back to them and to Burn from Vladimir Sofal. And then things slowed down in midfield by Guimaraes, who's given it to Lascelles, who sent it out to the far right hand side for Trippier. There was a bursting run from Almiron down that right side, but Trippier didn't want to play that ball. This is back on the halfway line with Jamal Lascelles. 0-0. Here is Isak, who is breezing up towards the edge of West Ham's penalty area, caught in a bit of a claret and blue trap. Nowhere to go. Back out on the right hand side with Trippier. Trippier's cross in. Anderson's header, he was on the stretch. It was a difficult one, and he sent it well over the top of the crossbar. In the end, the youngster,
it was a good run. He's made a good run from the left hand side. Trippier's looked up and he's put his arm up, and he's got the wrong side of Sufal as well, so he's unfortunate not to hit the target really. He's got the wrong side of Sufal, so he just needed to direct that back across goal.
He's another that's enjoying a bit of a run in the team at the moment, Elliot Anderson, South Shields born, has never before scored in the Premier League, and Newcastle have won themselves a free kick here, 15 yards inside West Ham's half, over on the far right-hand side, and Kieran Trippier is just rolling that ball out ahead of him because he is going to be the one to send in this free kick. West Ham feel like they're pinned in at the moment.
They do, but set pieces would be vital. Both teams got a very good size squad as well, and Trippier and Ward-Prowse, great delivery, so this could be vital for the game, really.
Burn, Lascelles, Cher, they're all in there for this free kick, which actually never reached any of them because Lucas Paquetá was lurking on the edge of his own penalty area, and he has headed it back out to play on that far side for a throw.
Just as we were saying about the delivery, is going to be great with Ward-Prowse and Trippier. It hits the first man, but that is going to be a really interesting opportunity for both sides. Set pieces, you can see the size of the back four for Newcastle, and the same with West Ham, so real opportunity.
Got a hat-trick of assists, didn't he, Kieran Trippier, in that massive win for Newcastle a couple of weeks ago against Sheffield United. And the ball is back with Nick Pope. Since losing to Brighton, Newcastle at the start of September, they have beaten Brentford, Sheffield United and Burnley in the Premier League, Manchester City in the League Cup. They've drawn with AC Milan, and they've beaten Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League. They are really beginning to motor now, aren't they?
When you put it like that, it's such a great run of form, and these players must be just brimming with confidence.
Here's Longstaff for Newcastle, out to the left-hand side for Tonali, on towards Anderson, back in field for Guimaraes, who is going to get plenty of length on that pass out to the right-hand side for Trippier, into the box towards Almiron, off the top of his head, and out to claim is Alphonse Areola, the West Ham United goalkeeper, who has been preferred to Lucas Fabianski for the Premier League games this season, and in the green he overarm bowls it out towards Sofal on the right.
Yeah, the thing is, we can see Newcastle, they're so comfortable in possession, but it seems they're little intricate passes down the middle, it goes to the left, it comes back, and that diagonal to Trippier is on all of the time, and that's where that last attack came from.
Sofal trying to get this free kick moving quickly. It was Paquetá who was bursting through the middle. The ball has bounced through to Nick Pope, the Newcastle goalkeeper. 0-0 between West Ham and Newcastle here on 5 Live Sports Extra. We are 7 minutes in, as Sofal stops the crossfield pass with 2 Newcastle players either side of him. Jared Bowen is trying to wriggle his way upfield. There's nowhere to go at the moment. He's been forced backwards and indeed has relinquished possession under pressure, Jared Bowen. So Newcastle have a throw on the left-hand side, and it's 2/3 of the way in West Ham's half.
Defensively, Newcastle, as soon as they lose the ball, they were straight on to West Ham there. Jared Bowen actually trying to jink his way past Burn, but he's a very big player to sort of manoeuvre your way round, and he's just in the end kicked it out of play, trying to pass it back to Sofal.
Cher has wasted that pass forward straight through to Areola, but really I think Eddie Howe will be very pleased, won't he, Matt, with the way that Newcastle have started in the first 7 minutes, because they've had all of the ball. All of it.
They're the ones dominating possession. They're the ones making the runs.
But now they're in a bit of trouble. Out comes Pope. Oh, he's been beaten to it. Emerson squares it, and Souček scores it, and West Ham United leads. 8 minutes in, the first West Ham attack has led to a goal. Newcastle undone by simplicity. A ball over the top. Emerson scampered onto it. Pope was caught in no man's land. Emerson went beyond him and then squared it for Souček, who's tapped it into an empty net. And it's West Ham 1, Newcastle 0.
Incredible first attack, but that's what happens when you have players that run in behind. Emerson, it looked like there was nothing on. The ball goes up to Antonio, who does brilliantly to keep hold of it, keep his team in the game, sets it back to Paquetá, who puts a nice ball over the top, but it's just a ball over the top. Nick Pope can't get anywhere near it. He goes round him, sets it up for Souček, and that's the easiest goal he's ever going to score, but completely against the run of play.
Well, that is quite remarkable. West Ham have barely ventured into Newcastle's half, let alone into their penalty area. And from West Ham's first attack, they have startled the Magpies. And Thomas Souček, who's been in great form of late, now has 4 goals in his last 6 games in all competitions. And there are lots of Hammers fans smiling inside this stadium now.
Absolutely. What an incredible turn of events. But the thing is now for West Ham is this is set up perfect for them. They love to be a goal up, get themselves back in as a team in the squad, get nice and compact, and they've got players that you can break. And for all of the possession and the passing stats for Newcastle, they haven't had a shot on goal. West Ham have 1 ball over the top and it ends in a goal.
Well, that will have certainly taken the wind out of Newcastle's sails and maybe just disrupted the flow a little bit, because Sean Longstaff from midfield there has just tried to play a ball out to this near left-hand side for Dan Burn. It was a good 5 yards behind him. It's gone out for a West Ham throw.
It's amazing how quickly things can change in a game of football. West Ham score and then all of the Newcastle players, everything's a rush. You know, the first touch just goes away from someone. He's just trying to play a nice little pass out to the left back, and it goes out of play. It's amazing.
Soufal's throw down the line off the chest of Jared Bowen, out for a Newcastle goal kick. Well, those Newcastle fans who were making an awful lot of noise in the first 10 minutes are now being drowned out by the sound of 60 or so thousand West Ham United supporters inside this packed stadium.
It's a really difficult place to come with West Ham this season, especially here. You know, the atmosphere, get going 1-0 up as well. It just, everything adds to what they're good at as a team. And they've got set pieces in the delivery of Ward-Prowse. We haven't even seen him yet take anything, so there's always that to come.
Well, they have won their last 3, West Ham, in 3 different competitions. They beat Lincoln in the League Cup, Sheffield United in the Premier League here, and then of course that win against Freiburg in Germany in the Europa League on Thursday. Not been beaten since Liverpool saw them off a few weeks ago at Anfield, and they have made a great start to here in terms of the scoreline. West Ham 1, Newcastle 0. We've just moved into the 12th minute, and it is Thomas Soucek with the goal. And I saw David Moyes, Matt Jarvis a moment ago, just down on the touchline scribbling a few notes on a piece of paper. I'm sure whatever was written on that paper before the goal might have changed a little bit now, because he would have been nervous before, I think.
Definitely, but as I said, it's the first time that someone's actually made a run beyond the defenders. It creates space for players like Paquetá to come and receive the ball, but Antonio does so well to make that run in behind, hold the ball up, bring his teammates into play, and then it's the third man run. It's Emerson. This particular occasion, it could be Bowen, it could be Soufal on the other side, but you've got to make that run in behind to create space for someone else, and Nick Pope found himself in a little bit of no man's land.
So West Ham 1, Newcastle 0. No goals in the other 2 o'clock games in the Premier League so far. Brighton 0, Liverpool 0. Goalless between Wolves and Aston Villa. And that huge game from 4:30 in North London, not too far from here. Arsenal against Manchester City. You can hear that game live on 5 Live this afternoon, as you can Brighton Liverpool right now over on the station too. But here on 5 Live Sports Extra and via BBC Sounds and the BBC Sport website, it is West Ham United 7th in the Premier League, 4 wins from their first 7 games, leading Newcastle United, who started the day a point behind the Hammers in the Premier League table. After a tricky start to their campaign, they really felt like they got moving, but it's West Ham who started quick, and they've got the ball again here, but Soucek unable to feed it through for Antonio, and now Newcastle trying to turn them round with Almiron on the halfway line. Out to that right-hand side for Longstaff, who doesn't have anywhere to go, so he's coming back infield, and now in the centre circle it is Guimarães up towards the Italian Tonali with the jet black hair. Now towards this left-hand side for Anderson, back in field for Guimarães, who's 30 yards out. He's lifted it up towards the far post. Trippier's won the header, and Areola's claimed it at his near post.
I think Trippier's hurt himself there as well. I think Emerson, I think, did really well with him. He's seen the run. Paquetá gave a little shout, didn't want to go himself. Gave the shout to Emerson, and he's just jumped into him. Even though Trippier won the header, he put him off so much that it just went straight through.
Well, we wondered how this game might play out, considering when these two were last together in April of this year. Newcastle won 5-1 here, but West Ham have got the advantage through that Soucek goal. It was Kurt Zouma who scored the 1 for the Hammers last season. Callum Wilson got a couple, Joe Linton did 2 for Newcastle that day. They totally ripped West Ham apart, but so far so good for the Hammers. Here's Emerson on the far left-hand side, trying to poke it towards Ward-Prowse. Didn't quite come all the way through to him. And now Elliot Anderson retrieves it halfway inside his own half, and he's given it back to Dan Burn.
I think even just in that last little bit of interchange from West Ham, that's the difference from them this season to last. Paquetá's floating in that midfield, getting the ball, threading little passes. There was into Alvarez, back to him, out to the left, into Ward-Prowse. They're doing all of these little passes in and around the corner, whereas before it was a case of they needed to Antonio to run the channel. They knocked it long, hoped that he hold it up, and then they could work from there. It's a completely different way of playing, and it's really working for them.
Newcastle in possession in midfield. There was so much talk, wasn't there, about Declan Rice and his departure in the summer and how this would affect this West Ham United team, but they have adapted and they have improved where necessary. This is Tonali though for Newcastle, 35 yards out, right in the centre of the pitch. Now for Byrne. Newcastle going from right to left in the first half at London Stadium in their black and white shirts. Now back with Guimaraes, who has fed it in towards the feet of Tonali, who has given it to Longstaff, who's tried to curl it into the channel for Trippier, but didn't get the pass right there, Sean Longstaff. And it is, in fact, it was Anderson's delivery which was wayward, and it's a goal kick.
Yeah, again, nice passing, little intricacy, round the corners, give and goes, and it was just that one. He's edging forward all the time on that right-hand side. Paquetá's hoping that he doesn't go because he has to track him, but he just went to go, stopped, and then the pass went too far behind.
So 1-0 West Ham United lead against Newcastle United. Matt Jarvis, former Wolves, West Ham of course, and Norwich City, play for all of them in the Premier League, is with us on this Sunday afternoon in London, and there is a yellow card here, and I can't quite see who that's been distributed. I think it's Bruno Guimaraes who's been cautioned for the challenge on Emerson.
I think Emerson also got a yellow card for asking for the yellow card. It was a foul by Bruno. He dragged Emerson down. I wouldn't say they were on the break, but again, it's Paquetá with a great little flick round the corner into Emerson, and he just gets away and brings him down. But it really shows that this West Ham team are able to cope with the soak up of the pressure of Newcastle dominating possession, and then just be able to exploit the weaknesses.
Sorry, Matt, I was just going to say the free kick's come in, but Antonio's failed to deal with it and Newcastle have cleared.
But it's Newcastle that have shown this season especially that they can come through difficult circumstances, and it is going to be very interesting from now on to see how the game develops.
Lascelles and Trippier getting themselves out of a tricky situation, though. Paquetá's pinched it back off Lascelles, who was caught on his heels. Paquetá's cross a little too deep and into the outstretched upward grasp of Nick Pope, the Newcastle goalkeeper, who has immediately sent it out towards Tonali on the near left.
It shows the strength of Paquetá, because it's not often you see Lascelles get bullied off the ball, but the final ball just went a bit too high for Pope to come and claim. But you can hear the atmosphere now of the West Ham fans. They're really getting behind their team. By the way, that was a great spot from you, Matt, to pick out that Emerson had been cautioned as well as Bruno Guimaraes a moment ago.
Far side from us.
It was, yeah. But you spotted the fact that there were 2 yellow cards being distributed, and there might be another one coming here because Ward-Prowse has been scythed down. It's Bruno Guimaraes again, and the West Ham players are surrounding Peter Banks and asking whether that is worthy of a second yellow card.
To be honest, that is worse. That's more of a yellow card than the first one, in my opinion. The first one, he wasn't really going anywhere. That one, Ward-Prowse has nicked it, and it's them, him and Antonio against the 2 centre half. So it's very, very interesting. He's taking his time, the referee.
Well, you're going to have another look at this because we're seeing this replay again for the first time, Matt. So just talk us through what's gone on here.
So it was a pass back. I think it was from Longstaff to Bruno, who just didn't quite get there, and Ward-Prowse nicked it. It was from Tonali back to him, and Ward-Prowse nicked it, and he's been caught. It is a yellow card. I think the referee's given him the benefit of the doubt.
Well, that is a huge benefit of the doubt as the ball is sent forward towards Ward-Prowse. It's headed away by Dan Byrne. I think that's going to be a contentious one from a West Ham perspective, depending on how this game plays out, because under all normal circumstances, as the ball trickles out of play for a Newcastle throw on the left, that is a second yellow card offence.
Absolutely. I think you can still see David Moyes now. He's trying to understand with the fourth official how that has not been a yellow card. It's a breakaway. Any other point in the game, any other player, that is a yellow card. Like I said, I think the first yellow card might have been a bit harsh, but that is a definite yellow card.
Well, the Brazilian who wears yellow for his country, lucky not to see a second one there, Bruno Guimaraes. It is still West Ham 1, Newcastle 0. We are 20 minutes in here on 5 Live Sports Extra. West Ham leading through Thomas Souček's goal, scored after Emerson's play on the left-hand side. And here is Sandro Tonali, the 5th Italian ever to play for Newcastle United. Now Guimaraes, who is still out on the pitch. Out to the right-hand side for Trippier. Trippier inside the final third. Deep cross towards the far post over the head of Anderson and Sofal, who are now in a foot race to try and retrieve the loose ball. And the decision has gone West Ham United's way.
Yes, definitely. I think that it was a foot race and tried to get a little shoulder to shoulder as you're running at full pelt, and Sofal's gone to ground, and he's won himself, I think, a free kick.
He's covered more distance for West Ham United so far in this Premier League season than any other player in the Hammers squad. Vladimir Sofal up and down on that right-hand side. He's given his right thigh a bit of a rub at the moment after that coming together.
Absolutely. I think, with Bowen, he's so effective coming in on that left hand, cutting in on his left foot from the right-hand side. It just means that you have to have that player that runs down the wing, and that is Sofal, and that's what his job is in the attacking third. He needs to get round Bowen to give them an attacking threat on this right.
Ball is fizzed back to the West Ham goalkeeper Areola, who shifts it onto his right foot, kicks it up towards Bowen. He got enough on his header to send it on towards Antonio, who has Lascelles with him. He's got it on towards Bowen. Bowen's got support coming on that left-hand side as well. Paquetá in the box, drives it low, and it is cleared away by Fabian Schär for Newcastle. Picked up again by Aguirre on the halfway line. Now Emerson to that left-hand side for Paquetá with his back towards goal at the midway point in Newcastle's half, with the white wristband on his left wrist, and he sends it out to the right side for Sofal, who's controlled it. He's kept it in play. He's sent in a deep cross. There's nobody at the back post, and Trippier very calmly with the inside of his right boot just settles it all down for Newcastle.
Yeah, brilliant defending from Trippier. He's able to just control it with his right foot and clear it.
And now Newcastle break. Tonali and Isak with a little 1-2. Isak 5 yards outside West Ham's box. He's got a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of West Ham players ahead of him at the moment. He's had to check his run slightly, and he's given it to Anderson on the left-hand side. Back with Tonali, who is 10 yards outside West Ham's penalty area. Left of centre, they're trailing 1-0 Newcastle. Here's Guimaraes forcing it on. Almiron, Trippier on the overlap, fizzed in the near post. Caught at chest height by Areola.
Again, really well intricate play from Newcastle. For a minute there, it was the first time that West Ham have really been caught where Newcastle have just got forward and outnumbered a little bit, but they did really well to get back in numbers and force them back. But that right hand side for Newcastle is where the attacking threat is. Trippier keeps bombing on, and that it was his cross that went into Areola that was cut out, but that is where their attacking threat is coming from.
It's going to be hard work for Kieran Trippier, who is predominantly running in the sunshine on that right-hand side, and it is a warm day, particularly warm for almost mid-October, as Trippier's pass forward finds a man who is offside. The flag is raised against Sean Longstaff, so West Ham are going to have a free kick here. If you're in that portion of the stadium, Matt, over to the left-hand side, so I'd probably say about a third of it, and you're in the bottom tier, you are having a job trying to see what's going on at the pitch, because that sun is low and it's bright.
It really is. It's hot for the players. I mean, it's hot for me. I'm in a suit.
Well, that was going to be my next point.
But no, it is. And this all comes into play when you play in Europe. You've got to come back and you've got to recover, and then you're playing now. And it's really hot out there. And the intensity of this game is electric. So you've got to be on point.
Smartest co-commentator on the circuit, Matt Jarvis, with us here on 5 Live Sports Extra, with West Ham leading Newcastle United by that Thomas Soucek goal to 0, and Jamal Lascelles has given away a free kick here for a foul on Paquetá, who is holding the left side of his face, the Brazilian, and is now slowly climbing back to his feet, and West Ham are going to prepare to take this free kick from the left-hand side, which is about 5 yards in from the touchline and probably about 20 yards inside Newcastle's half.
And we mentioned about set pieces, and we hadn't mentioned Ward-Prowse as yet has taken one. This is the first opportunity for him to put a ball into the box, and they're so dangerous, West Ham set pieces. It is incredible. Both teams, that their scoring ratio with set pieces is so high.
He's got 6 assists already this season, James Ward-Prowse. Here comes the free kick, and the header away was from Dan Burn,
and you can see why he's got that many. That is a superb ball into the box, and it was really well defended by Dan Burn, but it is a delightful ball. He must be looking at the West Ham players thinking, you've got to get on the end of that. It's landing on the 6-yard box, and the goalkeeper can't come. It's that well hit.
He's headed it behind Burn for a corner. He almost headed it right into the path of Jared Bowen, who was close it in. But West Ham will take the opportunity that this corner is going to present because of the man who is positioning that ball on the ground right now. Their number 7, James Ward-Prowse, who has taken 5 steps backwards over on that far left-hand side to deliver in-swinger, right foot on top of Pope, who punched it with his right hand, and the ball has bounced in the box, and the free kick has gone Newcastle's way because there was a foul by their Mexican midfielder, Edson Alvarez, West Ham's Mexican midfielder Alvarez.
Again, they must have worked on it because Ward-Prowse has whipped that ball right underneath Nick Pope, and the amount of pressure that was under him, everyone's trying to get in and amongst it, so it's something they've definitely worked on.
Hadn't been beaten in his last 3 Premier League games, Nick Pope, but has been beaten today. And even though he was out of his penalty, outside of his 6-yard box at least for the goal that West Ham scores, because of the way it played out, will there be any question marks about his involvement in the West Ham goal, the Newcastle goalkeeper?
I mean, he did find himself in a bit of no man's land, yes. I think it's the touch from Emerson that really made him basically miss the ball, because it was a really good first touch. He just took it to the left and around Nick Pope, but it's one of them that you think he can't score from that angle. Maybe he should have stayed in goal a little bit longer, but it's so fine margins. It's all about timing.
Here is Isak, great upper body strength from him on the halfway line, though his pass has been stopped by Jared Bowen, and it's allowed West Ham to get the ball back, and Ward-Prowse has given it to the Moroccan Aguirre, who sends it towards Paquetá on the halfway line, whose ball infield was intended for Souček. It's cut out by Scher, and he's clattered it out of play on that far left-hand side for a West Ham United throw.
They've certainly grown into the game, West Ham. Obviously the goal changes everything, but they're a lot more comfortable on the ball. They're able to pass it out from the back, and it's not just hoofed upfield, it's little passing styles.
And again, they're moving the ball swiftly here as it's chipped forward looking for Antonio, and Nick Pope comes and claims and then knows that Antonio is coming, so has arched his back to ensure that he didn't bear the brunt of the physicality of Michail Antonio, who in turn has gone tumbling over Pope with Fabian Schär, who's not happy about Antonio's involvement in that, and all in all the referee's decided the play has to be stopped.
Yeah, it's not something I would want to be involved with. That is, Nick Pope's just gone to win the ball. Antonio's just he's almost trying to stop because he knows he's got to get there, but your momentum's going through, and then you're going right over the top of Nick Pope, and he's sort of caught him on the side of the leg as well.
I was listening to the Footballers Football podcast on BBC Sounds this week with Michail Antonio and Callum Wilson. They were talking about what goal celebrations they were going to do if they did score in this game today. So I'll come back to that in just a moment, because Newcastle have got the ball on the left side of West Ham's penalty area. It's with Elliot Anderson, who's trying to trick his way onto his right foot. He's giving it back to Tonali, who's rolling the ball underneath his own foot on this left-hand side. Return to Anderson. Tonali's gone out to the touchline. He's got it now, his right-footed cross. It was a pretty hopeful delivery really from Tonali with no real aim on it, and it has harmlessly gone out of play for a goal kick.
Yeah, again West Ham getting back into a great shape and blocking them off, but they're camped there for good 30 seconds where West Ham are all inside the box and there's nowhere to go, and it was a hopeful ball from Tonali to the far post where no one was actually running. So it looks at the moment that Newcastle are sort of trying to come up with ideas how to hurt this West Ham team, but really struggling.
Just saw a shot of a few Newcastle United fans in the away end. There's a few glum faces in there with their black and white shirts on right now over towards our right hand side. West Ham leading by 1-0 here on 5 Live Sports Extra. Thomas Souček scored it. And going back to that discussion about Michail Antonio and Callum Wilson, obviously Wilson's on the bench. Antonio said if he scores today, he's going to do a chicken dance celebration.
Kevin Nolan one, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So
I've seen that a fair few times.
But he said, I'm going to rename it the Magpie Dance instead, just to try and antagonise a little bit. Here come Newcastle, who are beginning to work their way back into this game now. The shot from the edge of the box is just wide of Areola's right-hand post. It was brilliantly hit by Almiron, and we've seen him do that, haven't we, in recent weeks? Score superb goals from outside the box, and it's bent just wide of the right post.
He's so good at cutting in from that right-hand side, but it doesn't even look like he's shooting. He looks like he's looked up to see if anyone's in the box to have a shot, to have a cross, and he's whipped that delightful ball. He's only inches away from going into that top corner from out of nowhere, really.
That was almost so similar to the goal he scored against Burnley. a couple of weeks ago, Miguel Almiron. In fact, when was that? Last week. I'm getting all mixed up with that PSG game during the week because, of course, he scored in that match as well. Miguel Almiron, he's been in terrific form of late for Newcastle.
He certainly has, and it's being able to have the right back that's running, bombarding down the right-hand side in Trippier, so he's able to cut inside on his left. Very similar to how Bowen and Soufal work, but Almiron's got a delightful left foot that's able to do a lot of either shooting or a cross into the far post, and we've seen his quality.
Matt Jarvis with us here on 5 Live Sports Extra. West Ham leading Newcastle 1-0. Lucas Paquetá was down for just a moment there, so there was a pause in play. And Paquetá's having a slightly angry exchange here with Kieran Trippier because he feels that Trippier lent into him as Paquetá was going up for the header and ended up having to have a bit of treatment on his back there, the Brazilian.
Yeah, I think they're also a bit annoyed that I think Emerson just kicked the ball back to them because he was on the ground and then they didn't give it back. But they're well in their rights to keep the ball if that was the case.
So the talking point so far, the West Ham goal scored by Thomas Soucek, the question mark over whether Bruno Guimaraes should have been sent off for 2 pretty swift yellow cards. Now Lucas Paquetá has tripped a man and is going to be penalised himself. It is going to be a Newcastle free kick here, halfway inside West Ham's half on the far right hand side. There's not going to be a yellow card for that from Peter Banks by Lucas Paquetá for the foul on Lascelles.
Showed a good bit of pace there, Lascelles, to keep going forward. I think he thought, actually it's all opening up for him there, so he's carried on going, but he's put his team in a really good position for another Trippier set piece.
Obviously no Sven Botman at the moment for Newcastle. Gordon's suspended today, Joe Linton's still missing, Harvey Barnes is out for a while, as is Joe Willock, so there are quite a few in particular creative players for the Magpies that are absent. And they're looking for their first goal of the afternoon here, having scored 4 against Paris Saint-Germain during the week in the Champions League. Just past the half-hour mark, Newcastle free kick, midway inside West Ham's half, over on the far right-hand side. And Trippier, with his right foot, sweeps it in. The header is just wide. Dan Burn made connections with it, and it flashed past the right post of Areola.
It did. You can see how close it was because Areola's had one, as a goalkeeper, he's dived, he's made a real good effort to try and get it. So it is close. It's good. Burn just gets. I think it was behind Emerson, and it was flicked into the far corner. But as we mentioned, they're so effective from set pieces.
I don't know if you caught the Newcastle game against PSG in the week, or if you saw the highlights, but the will from Dan Burn to go and get his head on the ball for that goal that he scored was absolutely incredible. It sort of epitomised Newcastle's whole night, really, didn't it?
Absolutely. And the thing is, you go from that and then you see them just even, I think it was Anthony Gordon that was closing the centre half down on the goal line, and he's made the challenge, blocked it, and he's cheering and all the fans are up. I think that's their team spirit, and that's what gets them going, especially at home.
They need a bit of that at the moment, I think, Newcastle, because they haven't really tested Alfonso Areola so far in the West Ham United goal, who is making his 50th Premier League appearance of his career today. West Ham's number 23 in the sticks over towards our left hand side in the all green, and it's Newcastle in possession inside their own half with Fabian Schär, who himself scored a brilliant goal against Paris Saint-Germain in the week. Now Lascelles, who just puts his foot on the ball, looks around and sends it back to Schär. Newcastle just slowing things down a little bit into the feet of Longstaff. Almiron has come short for it, and he has nudged it on towards Guimaraes, who was nudged out of it. And now Guimaraes again, was it? Longstaff maybe. It's tricky to see exactly who made that foul. It's a West Ham free kick.
It was so carbon copy of the one before. Bowen's nicked it, but I think it was...
It's Almiron, isn't it?
I think it was Almiron but it is a carbon copy, and I was going to say it would be interesting to see if he gets a yellow card, because Bowen just picks it up, nips past, and he's on to the centre half in Shaw.
He sort of body checked him to the ground, didn't he, in the end, Miguel Almiron?
Yeah, he's looking now like, I didn't do anything, but he body checked Bowen down to the ground.
Yeah, that look though, I've seen that look 1,000 times.
I'm not guilty, honestly.
And that's every weekend. West Ham free kick, Zuma with it. They are 1-0 up against Newcastle, and it's up to the edge of Newcastle's box, and Trippier has, with his head, guided it back to his goalkeeper Nick Pope, And it's now on this near left-hand side with Byrne. Now Isak, great bit of skill from Alexander Isak through the legs of one man, scythed down by Michail Antonio. That was an untidy challenge from the West Ham forward, and immediately he is cautioned by Peter Banks for it.
It's a great bit of skill from Isak on the touchline round Soufal. Little right to left on the flank, gets up the line, and I think Antonio realises that he needs to help him out, but he's lunged in, didn't get the ball like he was protesting. And it is a yellow card.
Won't be doing the magpie dance for that, will he, at least?
Absolutely not.
Has started every Premier League game for West Ham this season, Michail Antonio. And of course, was in and out of the team last season with Skamaka being here and David Moyes largely preferring him, at least in the early portions of the season.
I think what he brings to the team is so much more than just like goals. It's his hold-up play. He occupies 2 or 3 centre-halves, depending on the formation. He runs the channels. He obviously comes in with goals as well, but it's everything that he does. His defensive work, set pieces as well, defensively as well as offensively. He's really instrumental in the way that the West Ham can build up the game.
Only won 1 of their last 8 meetings against Newcastle have West Ham United, and there has been a goal in one of the other Premier League games this afternoon. Brighton are leading Liverpool by a 1-0. Adingra has got it for Roberto De Zerbi's team. So Liverpool behind at the Amex Stadium. That is live right now on 5 Live, still 0-0 between Wolves and Aston Villa, and Arsenal against Manchester City. Full live commentary to come on 5 Live from 4:30. Newcastle trailing West Ham by a 1-0 here. Alexander Isak was hoping that ball was going to come back to him then from Dan Byrne. It didn't, and Byrne went chasing, and Ward-Prowse has won the throw out of him, right down by West Ham's corner flag in their right back area.
Yeah, but Isaac, he's the one that looks lively. Every time he's got the ball, he's looking like he wants to try and either take someone or commit someone and have a little 1-2 give and go. He's trying to come down to this left-hand side now to get involved in the game.
Good challenge that. Paquetá was chasing the ball, overcame Fabian Schär as well, who very, very rarely will let someone like Lucas Paquetá try and creep his way past him without letting him know he was there.
I think they're having a few words as they've got up and walked on. I think Paquetá, he's so strong, and he loves the Premier League and the grit and determination and the tackling. I think he's learnt that very quickly, and I think he really enjoys the battle.
Yeah, the Maverick, as David Moyes called him this week. As Ward-Prowse, one of West Ham's new midfielders, sends it back to Areola, his goalkeeper, who's lifted up to Paquetá. He's got time to take that ball down, turn, run and feed it through. And here's Antonio in the box, right hand side, 2 Newcastle players with him. Antonio is eventually flagged for offside, though that took a long time, that flag to be raised.
It did. To be honest, when he first played it, I thought, that might be offside, but the flag didn't go up even when he received the ball and took it on. So it was a very late flag, but Paquetá able to control, turn and drive at the Newcastle defence, and I think that's close actually.
It is, isn't it?
I don't even think he's offside.
It's one of those, I think, where had Antonio gone on and scored, that would have been forensically examined at Stockley Park, because that was really tight.
It really was, yeah. That's the thing what Antonio can bring, though. I say he stretches, he goes up the pitch, and he actually enjoys running off defenders as well. And there's no one better than Paquetá to be able to slip a ball in behind in tight areas.
Matt Jarvis, former West Ham United winger, didn't play here but played many a time at Upton Park for the Hammers, with us here on 5 Live Sports Extra. Newcastle are trailing West Ham by a 1-0, but they have got themselves a throw here. Trippier's cross is closed down, and it is more than halfway inside West Ham's half over on that far right hand side. Newcastle going from right to left at the London Stadium in the first half, and from our position the dugouts are way down below us to our left hand side. The 2 managers right now are on the edge of their technical area. Eddie Howe's on his haunches at the moment, he's down assessing the situation. Here's Tonali chipping it in from the left, and Areola might have given a shout, and if he did, Zuma didn't hear him, because right in front of him the West Ham defender has hooked it away for a Newcastle throw instead. Yeah,
it's unnecessary. Areola should be screaming at Zuma there to leave it. There was no one on, he could just pick that up. It puts himself into a position that they're now near the corner flag for a throw-in,
which Isak has come short to retrieve from Dan Byrne. He's got it back to Byrne on the overlap. Byrne with the cross up towards the far post. The header should be simple and is for Areola. who has leapt, has caught, has dropped to the ground and has dived on top of the ball.
That's the only problem with Isaac coming over to this left-hand side. He's done really well, received the ball, nice little touch, and then set Dan Burn down the left to cross it in, but then there's no one in the box for them to put the cross into.
That was really good from Antonio, coming short from Areola's ball out of his arms up towards Antonio, and he just held the ball up beautifully on the halfway line to keep possession for West Ham United, who are still leading through that early goal from Thomas Souček. And Newcastle, who started the brighter but have yet to force Areola into a genuine save, though Nick Pope hasn't had a big save to make so far either. Here come West Ham though. Paquetá looking for Antonio, couldn't quite feed it through. It's back out to Ward-Prowse, 25 yards out. Ward-Prowse is encouraged to continue. Emerson has got up on the overlap, the Italian on the left-hand side. Now with Lucas Paquetá, who is rolling the ball underneath his feet and is going to send it back towards Naif Agur on the halfway line, and he's gone all the way back to Areola, who's on the edge of his box.
Yeah, but you see Almiron chasing and hurrying, and that's what you need from a Newcastle perspective. He needs to create some sort of drive in the team to push them up the pitch, because West Ham are starting to get possession, starting to look lively every time they go forward.
We're in the final 5 minutes of the first half here in England's capital. Sandro Tonali for Newcastle. Infield it goes towards Guimaraes, who has a little bit of support over on that far right hand side. It's been helped on towards Trippier. Guimaraes has come short for it again. He's chipped it in. He's looked to pick out somebody at the far post. There was nobody there, and Isak, who was the closest one to it, isn't able to keep it in play, and it's a goal kick. There is an apology from Bruno Guimaraes to his teammates there.
Yeah, it was forced, I think, the cross there. It's gone out to Trippier. He's probably had a better angle, but he just played it inside to Bruno, and he just took it too early. And as we said about Isak, he is out. It looks like they've switched. Him and Anderson look like they've switched, and he's out on this left-hand side. So when he's out there, there isn't that focal point in the middle of the goal to have that cross that you know he's going to try and get on the end of.
West Ham goal kick. They are leading Newcastle 1-0. Just wonder what Eddie Howe's thinking right now. He says he wants to keep expectations grounded, the Newcastle manager, saying this week he will urge caution and calmness because his team haven't proved anything yet.
I mean, he has to say that because, you know, for instance, this result, if it stays like this, everyone's going to be like, oh, they can't handle being in Europe and then coming back and playing in the Premier League. It's so early. They're a very good team, and you can't just pin it on one game.
There was a remark from David Moyes this week, which was of interest, I think, and slightly pointed in Newcastle's direction when he said that it's very difficult to explain how tough it is to play European football in the week and to maintain good form in the Premier League at the weekend as well. And Newcastle at the moment are not necessarily replicating the same sort of dazzling performance they delivered against Paris Saint-Germain during the week. They've lost possession here inside West Ham's half, and Antonio, who was trying to get himself out of a cul-de-sac, has won West Ham a free kick for a foul by Trippier.
We mentioned Antonio earlier. His hold-up play today has been excellent. That's what, unfortunately, for Newcastle, that's what's missing. You know, whenever the ball's been put up to the front man, he's coming out to this left-hand side. There hasn't been that build-up play, and Antonio's been so pivotal in the way that West Ham have built possession. It's been up to him. He's held the ball. He's brought others into play, and there he wins his team a free kick, which is huge.
West Ham go from left to right with Zuma sweeping it out towards Paquetá, who's seen plenty of the ball and plenty of Newcastle players around him in the first half. They've got themselves out of that situation. A cross goal by Ward-Prowse. It was with the outside of his right boot, and it was too close to Nick Pope, who has got it for Newcastle. Yeah,
again, it's Paquetá using his strength and his ability on that left-hand side to hold off Trippier, I think it was, and bring others into play. And it was just not his best cross at Ward-Prowse there. Just tried to put it on his outside of his right foot, but again, nice to see them up that high in possession, winning the ball back, and then putting the cross into the box and having numbers in the box.
And immediately they turn play over again because Alvarez came and crunched into a challenge in midfield, and now under a bit of pressure on the edge of his own box, Lascelles has hooked it away with Antonio next to him, and there is Alvarez again sliding in to keep things going for West Ham with those bright white boots, getting it all the way back to his goalkeeper Areola.
Yeah, I think they've actually West Ham, after the first 10 minutes where Newcastle dominated possession, they've really got themselves back into a really positive frame of mind.
Sofal, right hand side, cross into the box, looking for Antonio, headed away by Cher. It's come back out to this right side where Tonali has held off the advances of Sofal to clear it away for Newcastle. West Ham leading 1-0. We're in the last 40 seconds of the first half, plus whatever is to be added on by the fourth official, Michael Salisbury, and the ball is out for a Newcastle throw inside their own half on the left. 1-0 West Ham lead. Liverpool have equalised against Brighton. 1-1 now at the Amex. Mohamed Salah has scored the goal for Jurgen Klopp's team, so 1-1 there. Still no goals between Wolves and Aston Villa at Molineux. And here West Ham 1-0 up against Newcastle United as Fabian Cher strides forwards, not really at a jog, but not at walking pace either, as he takes it up to the halfway line. Byrne has gone back to Nick Pope, and there are to be 2 minutes added on at the end of the first half at London Stadium. It's been a good watch. Is there any way back into this game before the break, at least for Newcastle? Trippier hoping so. Forward it goes to Tonali, the layoff for Guimaraes. On the left-hand side is Alexander Isak, who's adopted a far wider role as this half has gone on. Now Guimaraes again, nowhere to go, so has to come back in field, has given it to Longstaff, who has Trippier in an advanced position on that right-hand side. Trippier, Guimaraes, 30 yards out, trying to feed it in towards the feet of Tonali. Newcastle have got it back again. Here is Isak. It's all outside the box at the moment, and that is a big challenge from Paquetá, who's distributing them out at the moment, and then is on the end of one himself, but it's not a foul. Newcastle have got the ball back with Elliot Anderson. There was nothing wrong with the challenge, and now they work it towards Trippier. Trippier flicking it into the box and off the thigh and then into the feet of Naya Faged, who is off on a bit of a run here, the centre-back. He's opening up his legs and he's running away down that left-hand side. There's nobody up with him at the moment, so he's going to have to check the run slightly. Ward-Prowse is arriving now. Here's Ward-Prowse inside the box. Didn't have the physical strength to get his way past Kieran Trippier, and it is a goal kick.
What a great bit of pace there from Agard. He's just opened up and knocked it round. I don't even know who he knocked it round, but you're thinking, well,
it was Trippier, I think.
Who's he passing to? But he's just carried on running. Brilliant bit of pace going forward, and what it does for the team, they know it's close to half time, so getting up the other end was a great bit of teamwork.
So in the final 60 seconds then, and there's perhaps only 20 seconds or so left of stoppage time here, Newcastle have the ball just inside West Ham's half, but they are 1-0 down and they have given it away, and in an attempt to retrieve the situation, it wasn't his fault. Sandro Tonali has fouled Michail Antonio, and that is to be the last action of the half. So West Ham leading Newcastle by a 0-0 in what has been a positive and resolute display so far from the Hammers, and for Newcastle United, who have had plenty of the ball, Matt Jarvis, but have failed really to find a way to regularly penetrate that West Ham defence. I
think just that last incident when Tonali just loses the ball, that sums up Newcastle's half. They've had all the possession, it's just that last little bit, they've given it away, and West Ham have defensively done so well, getting everyone back into positions, but they're nicking the ball and being able to break. And obviously the first 10 minutes is all Newcastle up until that one opportunity where Antonio's running behind, kept the ball, and then it's a third man run with Emerson, who Nick Pope just in between position. That the first touch from Emerson is outstanding to his left, and then sets up Souček for an easy goal. But it's really well drilled West Ham David Moyes performance, and Newcastle will go into this thinking, well, we've tried the intricate passing, we've tried going long, we've tried to go out to the right, now we've moved Isak to the left hand side, and they still can't quite find a way to get through.
Just wonder whether Eddie Howe might think about tinkering a little bit. The only problem, of course, for him, we highlighted it in the first half, they're missing so many attacking players that can influence a game. No Gordon because he's suspended, no Willock, no Joe Linton, no Harvey Barnes. Lots of players there Eddie Howe can't call upon today under normal circumstances, game changers.
Absolutely, but the worst for West Ham is Callum Wilson's on the bench. I mean, his record against West Ham is incredible, to be fair, so that'll be something that if he does come on the pitch, I'm sure West Ham players will be like, right, we need to keep him quiet. And to be honest, for Newcastle, that's exactly the type of player they need. They haven't had Isaac's. He wasn't involved in the game to start with. That's why he's probably come out to this left-hand side. But every time they went forward, they didn't have that focal point in the middle of the box. When the cross came in, there was no one there. It's one of them positions that Callum Wilson does so well.
Well, there is only one Premier League game so far this season that West Ham haven't scored first in, and that was at Anfield against Liverpool, and they are maintaining that very positive trend so far. 1-0 up against a Newcastle team who, coming into this game, are unbeaten in their last 6 in all competitions. Matt, thank you very much for now. We will be back here on 5 Live Sports Extra and via BBC Sounds for live second half commentary of West Ham against Newcastle United. West Ham leading by 1-0 at the break, but for now we will take you over to the team on 5 Live to catch up with everything else that has happened in the first half in those other 2 Premier League games.
Steve, Mark, thank you very much for the time being. Brighton 1, Liverpool 2, half-time at the Amex, of course. Second half commentary to come here on 5 Live. I'm now live at the Emirates ahead of Arsenal versus Manchester City at 4:30. Let's cross the city and get the half-time at the London Stadium. Chris Temple.
West Ham 1, Newcastle 0 after putting 4 past PSG. Newcastle have been very disappointing going forward for the most part. West Ham have only needed 1 shot on target to lead, and it came from their first attack. Thomas Souček stroking in unmarked after Nick Pope went walkabout. Emerson crossed it in, and Souček didn't have a Newcastle player within yards. A talking point on 18 minutes, Bruno Guimaraes, 2 fouls in the space of a couple of minutes, got a yellow for the first, escaped a yellow for the second. That's a talking point which West Ham may look at if they don't win this game. Almiron and Byrne both missing the target with Newcastle's only efforts, but it's a Sunday afternoon that's lacked intensity for the most part. West Ham have the edge by 1-0.
And you can listen to full commentary of the second half of that match on 5 Sports Extra. You can also do that with Wolves versus Villa via the BBC Sport website and app. Nothing doing, Pat Murphy?
0-0 at half-time. It's fractious, bad-tempered, inadequately refereed, players queuing up to get opposition players booked. Tone was set after 5 minutes when Villa's Kamara was booked. McGinn and Dawson predictably also so yellow. The occasional outbreak of football amid the bad temper. Splendid low save by Sarr from the Wolves goal to deny Cash early on. Aït-Nouri went close for Wolves, a flick just past the post, but we're waiting now for this collection of very good players on both sides actually to start playing some decent football. Villa nil, Wolves nil.
Pat, thank you very much indeed. We're all getting very giddy here in the nation's capital about it being 24 degrees in October. Suspect it might be a little bit warmer in India at the Cricket World Cup. The hosts are playing Australia. Jeff Lemon.
It's absolutely roasting out here. Everybody who's done anything is sweating up a storm out on the field, and some of us watching are as well. India lost 3 wickets before they'd scored a run off the bat. So Ishan Kishan, Rohit Sharma, Shreyas Iyer all out for ducks with only a couple of extras on the board. And then Virat Kohli was dropped on 12 by Mitchell Marsh. So had they held on to that one, Australia might have been a chance of defending this. But India have just been waiting out the new ball, and they're starting to get a little bit more on top now. They're 33 for 3, Kohli on 18, KL Rahul on 12.
Thank you very much, Jeff. You can listen to commentary of that via the BBC Sport website. In the Women's Super League so far today, it finished Brighton 0, West Ham 2. And Manchester City 1, Chelsea 1. City ending the game with 9 players and Chelsea equalising through Guru Wrighton in the 96th minute. Much more on all of the live sport going on this afternoon, and then second half commentary from the Amex to come after the news with Carl Hartley.
Listen on BBC Sounds. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Thanks, Steve. Israel is battling to regain control of parts of its territory a day after Palestinian militants launched a large-scale attack. The BBC has seen verified footage of gunfighting between the Gaza border and Ashdod in Israel. More than 1,000 people have died in the conflict so far. The government in Israel say 600 Israelis have been killed and 100 have been kidnapped. Officials in Gaza say 370 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes. Civilians in towns near the Gaza border are being evacuated by the military as Israel ramps up its offensive. Our Middle East correspondent Yolande Nell spoke to us on 5 Live about the response from Israel.
They have said that they're going to come down extremely strongly, that Hamas will pay the price. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Hamas hideouts in the Gaza Strip would be reduced to rubble. We know that there have been 450 targets, according to the Israeli military, that it has gone after. It's been those have included the homes of some senior Hamas leaders, but also high-rise buildings in Gaza, including one that had all of the main internet providers. That's made it actually harder to get information out of the Gaza Strip. I mean, the hospital that I'm looking at here is very well resourced. Of course, in the Gaza Strip, it's such an impoverished place. The hospitals there are already poorly resourced. Now Israel has cut off the electricity that it supplies to the Strip, and we know that hospitals there are struggling to cope as the casualties there mount as well.
Residents in Gaza have been told to leave the area. Since last night, around 280 targets have been hit by Israeli airstrikes. Our reporter Rushdie Abdalouf is there.
Since last night, when Israel launched this retaliation operation in Gaza, many areas people were leaving, and we understand from sources in the UN that as many as 22,000 people already left their homes, and now they are taking shelters in a UN school. We have seen this scenario before, as Gaza fought like 4 wars, or Hamas fought 4 wars with Israel in the last 17 years. And Gaza, the people in Gaza, they don't have any shelter facilities. So people usually, what they do, they go to the UN school because they believe that UN school is protected by the UN and nobody will hit them there. Also, we notice that people are going to hospitals for the same reason.
Now, organisations are helping people caught up in the conflict. Hindel Kudri is a media officer for the Euromed human rights group in Gaza.
This is not the first time I live an Israeli aggression on Gaza. Like I have been there like all my life, but like this time it was way different. The explosions never ended. They were targeting residents' houses and people's houses, and they were calling people to flee their homes so they can like bomb them. All night we were trying to find a safe space.
Now, the Israeli embassy in the UK has confirmed that a British citizen, Jake Marlowe, is missing in Israel, while the family of Nathaniel Young, a British-Israeli soldier, have confirmed he's died in the attacks by Hamas yesterday. Questions are now being asked why Israel's intelligence agencies failed to find out that Hamas was preparing yesterday's attacks. The former head of Israel's security services, Mossad, Ephraim Havlevi.
On many of the occasions the last couple of years, although there was tension in the West Bank, they were careful not to directly enter war except in very exceptional circumstances and only for a very, very short time. So this kind of operation that they launched yesterday was entirely foreign to the way they were behaving up to now.
The Pope has called for an end to the fighting. The UN Security Council to hold an emergency meeting later. You can follow this story on our website, BBC News website. There's also analysis of the details around it as well. Some other stories quickly. The Taliban government in Afghanistan says more than 2,000 people died in yesterday's powerful earthquake in the west of the country. And Labour's party conference is underway in Liverpool as Sir Keir Starmer has laid out his plans to tackle the NHS backlog if the party wins the next general election.
Service!
On BBC iPlayer.
Have you seen my sugar?
Yeah, it's over here, girl.
Oh, definitely not sweet enough. No chance.
A brand new drama starring Vanette Robinson and Stephen Graham.
This is impossible. I need help, please.
Don't worry, I've got it.
No.
It's like working with a bunch of school kids. No, I'm not going to calm down. I've had enough.
What happened last time you lost your temper in the kitchen?
He's all used to work for me. If it wasn't for it, I'd still have my own restaurant.
Boiling Point. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
This is 5 Live Sports with Steve Crossman.
On 5 Live. Listen on BBC Sounds.
And it is just starting to feel as big as it really is here at the Emirates ahead of Arsenal versus Manchester City in full-on Premier League Sunday at 4:30. I can see past players of both clubs just down below us doing their media interviews. Samir Nasri is there, former Arsenal and Manchester City midfielder. Kolo Toure I can see just away to our right-hand side as well. Speaking of Manchester City, their women's team playing this afternoon in the WSL drew 1-1 with Chelsea, but finished the game, City, with 9 players players after 2 England players, Alex Greenwood and Lauren Hemp, were both sent off. Here's their manager, Gareth Taylor.
I thought we were quality in the opening exchanges. The first 15 minutes, I felt we were really on the front foot. We scored a brilliant goal. I had a feeling that Chloe was going to score today. I had a feeling that we would overrun them in the first 15 minutes. And then obviously the bit of a game changer is obviously Alex's red card, which changes everything, and it's frustrating, particularly when we seem to have gone from like here to here all of a sudden on dishing out those yellow cards. And I don't know, I think it's a difficult one to take, that, because the girls were magnificent in terms of defending the box, against some very, very good players who play very direct. But I felt we dealt with everything. Unfortunately, at the vital moment, we have Alana off of the pitch at that vital moment. But look, I'm so proud of the players.
A couple of other WSL scores for you. West Ham won 2-0 at Brighton at half-time. It's Tottenham 3, Bristol City 0. Elsewhere, Argentina will play Wales in the Rugby World Cup quarter-finals. They beat Japan 39-27 in Nantes. Fiji only needed a losing bonus point or better against Portugal later to play England in the last 8. The Rugby Union Daily Pod every morning on BBC Sounds. There's live text commentary at the moment on the BBC Sport website of the Buffalo Bills against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars leading 8-0 at the moment. On Sports Extra later from 10. Commentary of Philadelphia Eagles at Los Angeles Ram. And just as I look around the Emirates here, you can see many American Arsenal flags. Arsenal Detroit with the stars and stripes in front of me. Arsenal Philadelphia as well. John Murray, correspondent, is with us inside the Emirates.
Hi, Steve.
So I was saying before, John, it's just starting to feel just as big as we know this is today.
Yeah, to follow on the conversation that we had right at the start of the afternoon when we were in the pub together, I've now spoken to a lot of people about who they think might actually fill in the central area for Manchester City today in the absence of Rodri. And I would say Rico Lewis is actually probably the name that's been mentioned most frequently, and I know that he played further forward in the Champions League in Leipzig on Wednesday night. But Bernardo Silva, Foden, possibility of Akanji playing in there, Kovacic, Matheus Nunes. And I think what's interesting is as well, via our pictures here in front of us in the commentary position, we see that John Stones is here, even though Pep Guardiola said he was not ready to play, and he was on the bench in the Champions League in midweek, but he's here. And we've also been told that both Saka, yes, but also Martinelli got off the Arsenal team coach. So we'll find out in about 12 minutes.
Yeah, I just noticed that when Gabriel Martinelli walked down the tunnel, there were a couple of Arsenal fans who just sort of crowded around us to look at the monitor to see who was here. They were looking for Saka and they saw him, but they saw Martinelli as well. So we'll get the team news in just under half an hour's time.
Half an hour, that's right. Yes, I don't know where I got that from.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting when it comes. But the point is, what you were just saying there about the City midfield is that it says everything about the importance of Rodri, that it isn't just a straight idea of, OK, he comes out, so X comes in. It spawns an entire debate.
But also, the name that I've not mentioned there is Calvin Phillips in the England squad this week. And he's the man that when Manchester City signed him, the assumption was that, well, if Rodri's not playing, it'll be Calvin Phillips who plays in that role. Yet almost no one has suggested that he will come in, which I think is, listen, let's see what happens when the team news comes out, because Pep Guardiola is perfectly capable of pulling a surprise and putting him in the team, but that would be a massive surprise, and I think that's quite damning actually when you think of what.
Hello everyone, welcome back to London Stadium for coverage of West Ham against Newcastle United in the Premier League here on 5 Live Sports Extra. To continue listening to Brighton against Liverpool, that is over on 5 Live. It is myself, Chris Wise, and the former West Ham winger Matt Jarvis here on 5 Live Sports Extra, with West Ham leading Newcastle by a 1-0. Thomas Souček scored it inside the first 10 minutes. And Matt, I guess the first observation as the two teams emerged from the tunnel below us down to our left-hand side is that those Newcastle players were out there a good 2 minutes before West Ham came out.
Yeah, I can imagine the team talk was, get yourselves back out there. You need to step the tempo up. It's all of this nice, pretty passing. I think possession stats were very much in Newcastle favour, but the end product was not there. That's a little bit of a worry for Newcastle.
So off we go in the second half then. West Ham 1, Newcastle 0 here on 5 Live Sports Extra. And Newcastle going from left to right in this second half. So that is towards the Geordies towards our right-hand side in the away end, in their black and white shirts with the black shorts and the white socks, and West Ham United in their home strip of the claret and blue, and they are going from right to left, and immediately West Ham have a free kick on the edge of their own penalty area, which Nath Aguirre is going to send long, and Lascelles with his head is going to deal with.
Yeah, I think towards the end of the first half, David Moyes was, I think it was a few goal kicks that he was waving his hands at Areola to say stop kicking it there, because every time it was either Dan Burn or Lascelles, they were just winning the headers. You've got to try something different, and that's why you saw him in the first half throwing it out to Antonio, trying to get into his feet, or passing it out to the fullbacks, because they're going to win the majority share of them long balls.
So remember, both of these teams are trying to make a little ground up on those in the top four today. West Ham beginning the afternoon in 7th in the Premier League table, Newcastle United 8th, just a point between them, but obviously there's lots of teams in and around that area that are playing right now. Brighton and Liverpool, Aston Villa of course, who are at Wolverhampton Wanderers, and then Arsenal against Manchester City to come from 4:30 live on 5 Live. There is a short delay here, I'm not too sure what it is exactly, but West Ham are being delayed taking their throw, and eventually they are given the go-ahead by Peter Banks, and Ward-Prowse is not really with anywhere to go, having to send it back to Areola, his goalkeeper, who sends it upfield and onto the chest of Lucas Paquetá. Trippier got himself initially, positionally wise, in a bit of a mess, but he recovered really well to make up the ground and get the ball back.
He's done very well there, because Paquetá got the other side of him and he's so strong, but Trippier's used his pace and got himself the other side of him and nicked the ball back, and one possession back for Newcastle.
And Fabian Schär just striding out of defence with it, the Newcastle United centre-back, a Swiss international who's been at the club for 5 years now. And with his left foot he sends it infield towards Lascelles, back with Schär again in the centre circle with the bright white boots, and Lascelles, and now Trippier, who is hanging wide on this right hand side. I just wonder whether we're going to see an increased intensity from Newcastle in the second half, because speaking to one or two inside the press box of a Newcastle persuasion at half time, they were saying that Newcastle are playing today like PSG did against them during the week in the Champions League, as Isak is penalised after a ball over the top has caught him pulling on the shirt of Vladimir Sofal. So West Ham free kick inside their own box.
I would agree with you to a certain extent, but you've probably got to give praise to the West Ham team. You look there in that last little bit of possession for Newcastle, the midfield and Antonio of West Ham are working so hard to get back into a shape where there is no gaps to make them little passes inside. Everything's going wide to either Trippier or Burn the other side, and there is no way through. You see Alvarez as well, like if Trippier's forward and Paquetá's just getting himself the wrong side, Alvarez is straight over, and he's showing him one way, not letting him come back inside, which it makes a huge difference to the defenders behind you to know that, right, he's not going that, we can get this side of the centre forward, we can stop that the ball going that way.
Here's Isak for Newcastle, halfway inside West Ham's half, and they ran into trouble. Ward-Prowse has now got it for West Ham, up towards Paquetá on the halfway line, and has support from Emerson, who was the man who got the assist for the West Ham goal in the first half, their left back, and he's got it again off Ward-Prowse. He's cutting infield from the left side, Emerson, back towards the feet of the goal scorer, Souček, and now with Sofal sending it out to the far right hand side for Jarrod Bowen, back in the England squad. Jarrod Bowen this week named in Gareth Southgate's squad for those games against Australia and Italy, and here he is again, Bowen into the penalty area, and it's taken away from him and put behind for a corner by Fabian Schär.
Really well worked opportunity there. It all started on the left hand side, where there's really good interchange between Paquetá, Emerson and Ward-Prowse, and it's developed over to the right hand side, and as we mentioned before about Bowen liking to on that right hand side cut inside on his left, the ball got played to him just a little bit too far in front, but another really good opportunity from a set piece from Ward-Prowse.
He's rolling up his socks on that far right hand side, James Ward-Prowse, just setting himself before he places that ball down for this West Ham corner. 5 minutes into the second half, 1-0 the Hammers lead against Newcastle United here on 5 Live Sports Extra, and Ward-Prowse with the corner, and the header from Alvarez is wide of the post. It was a diving header from 8 yards out. He sent it across goal, Edson Alvarez, and Pope at full stretch, but it went wide of his post.
What a training ground routine. You could see when Ward-Prowse put the ball down, he's had a little bounce of the ball, and you can see Alvarez hanging out on the edge of the box, and as soon as that ball comes in, it's a low one, he's a diving header, and it's a great header into the far corner, just past the post, but really well worked.
Would have been his first Premier League goal. He's yet to score since his £35.4 million move from Ajax, Edson Alvarez. Goals haven't been his thing since he's come in. Yellow cards have, because if he's booked today, he misses West Ham's next game against Aston Villa. Edson Alvarez.
He does love a tackle. He's in that team to break up play, and he does it really well. But yes, he's prone to getting one wrong, maybe.
Guimaraes, who did get one wrong in the first half, and one or two might say he should have picked up 2 yellow cards in that first 45 minutes. Now Sandro Tonali, who was introduced back into the starting 11 for Newcastle against PSG during the week. And coming short for the ball on this near right-hand side is Trippier. Newcastle are trying to work little triangles to pick their way through. Tonali back with Trippier in field towards Almiron, who was under pressure from Paquetá. Back with Trippier into the feet of Tonali. It's still out on this near right-hand side, but West Ham are just saying to Newcastle, you're not going to come through this way.
Exactly, that's what I mean. It's really good passing by Newcastle, but they can't find a way through. They're trying everything. Little passes, like 5-yard passes here and back, but West Ham are working so hard to keep their shape and make sure that it doesn't come through them.
And that's what David Moyes is so good at doing with his teams. I mean, they're attractive on the eye, but goodness me, they are pragmatic as well when they need to be.
They certainly are. I mean, that is David Moyes down to a T, making sure his teams are hard to beat.
Newcastle still in possession of the ball, and they're about 15 yards outside West Ham's box at the moment. Tonali has been harassed by Ward-Prowse. Lascelles is now going to chip it out to the right-hand side for Trippier. 1-0 West Ham lead. Here's Almiron. This is a more promising position. Off goes Almiron, wriggling and running the ball out of play.
I mean, really, really good possession from Newcastle. They were probing, they're trying on the right, they went out to the left, through the middle, there's nothing on, they keep going right, and the defensive work from West Ham, you can see that every time it goes to even the centre half, Antonio sprinting to close him down. It went into Tonali, Ward-Prowse is out and sprinting and closing down. That's what we mentioned about Almiron in the first half, that's what he does, but this whole West Ham team are doing it collectively at the moment.
What David Moyes has done this season is hardly tinkered with his starting 11 in Premier League games. Bear in mind he didn't make any changes today across the whole season so far to his starting 11. He's only made 6 alterations, Moyes, to this West Ham team in the league. So he has found a structure and he has found his personnel and he's very happy with them at the moment. But they're having to defend at the moment. Here come Newcastle again, poke through for Isak. Out comes the goalkeeper, Areola, and he dives in at the feet of Isak and he claims the ball.
The thing with West Ham at the moment as well, though, compared to last year, is the bench. Their squad, they've improved so much. So now, yes, he's got a settled side, but if anything changes the game, if they're needing to shut up shop, or if they need a goal, they're able to bring players on. Kudos is an exceptional player. You've got Kone, you've got Ings, Benrahma. These are really attacking quality players. So it's a squad depth that is a real big positive for West Ham this season.
And they might have a little concern here over Michael Antonio, who is now back on his feet, but was being asked if he needed some treatment because Fabian Schär has come smashing through the back of Michael Antonio. It is a West Ham free kick.
Yeah, it's not today, please, is that from Fabian Schär on Antonio. Just had his opportunity to run straight into the back of him there.
It was always going to be a good old battle between those two today, wasn't it? Schär and Antonio, as Ward-Prowse gets his foot on the ball in midfield for West Ham and gives it to Antonio, who's looking sprightly again down the right hand side for Bowen. Tried to push it back into the box for Antonio, but his pass was blocked and Newcastle can bring it away. And then Almiron is body checked to the ground by Alvarez, who is being penalised, but he's saying, please don't book me because I'll be suspended if you do.
Exactly, but that's what he's in the team for. You see that West Ham are committed players forward, and there's that one opportunity, Newcastle, great ball into the field where Almiron's turned, but Alvarez just uses his body very cleverly to get the free kick and get his team back in, but desperately pleading with the referee, don't book me.
Matt Jarvis is with us today on BBC Radio 5 Live Sports Extra. We're on BBC Sounds, we're via the BBC Sport website as well, and it is Newcastle United who are trailing West Ham by a 1-0. A West Ham team who have collected 13 points from their first 7 Premier League games. It equals their best ever tally at this stage of a Premier League season. They've done it twice before, but Newcastle now on the attack. Almiron's cross, and Sofal is there with his orange boots covering the ground, clearing it away from pretty much the penalty spot when he sent it back out to this near right hand side. But back into Newcastle possession again, who are saying, and you can hear the noise from the Newcastle supporters as well, there needs to be a bit more tempo if they're going to break this West Ham team down, and they're trying to find it. And they've got the ball on the far left hand side now with Anderson. Infield it comes with Lascelles, who's a long way now into West Ham's half, Newcastle's centre-back, with Trippier with the number 2 on the back of his shirt. Infield towards Guimaraes, who is looking for the space, has got it to Isak, who's in the box. Isak, he got 2 West Ham players around him. He's dinked it up to the far post. The header from Dan Burn, and the save from Areola is excellent. Springing to his left, the West Ham goalkeeper, to repel the effort from Newcastle's big defender. And now Lucas Paquetá has fouled Tonali on the halfway line. It's a Newcastle free kick. West Ham aren't happy about that, but what a save from Areola.
Fantastic save from Areola. That is a massive part of the game there that is pivotal at the moment, because Newcastle were probing. They inside intricate West Ham at everyone's back, and it's pretty much in the box. And Dan Burn, far inside the 6-yard box on the far side, he couldn't do anything better. He's headed down into the far corner, and Areola's got down and pushed it away. Incredible save to keep his team in it.
But they're soaking a bit up here, West Ham United, at the start of the second half. It's a free kick sent in by Trippier for Newcastle. It's dropped to Isak, who equalises from short range. Alexander Isak into the roof of the net, right in front of those Newcastle United supporters. Isak makes it 1-1, and the Swede kept his composure when Newcastle needed him to. Their leading scorer this season has another. West Ham 1, Newcastle 1.
We said it might be set pieces, and again it's a delivery into the box. I think we're just looking to see whether that potential, he might have been offside from the start, but it wasn't dealt with by West Ham at the far post, and the ball eventually come from the far side. I think it's headed by a West Ham player to Isaac, who gets the control and puts it into the back of the net, but I think it's going to VAR.
Yeah, they're going to have a look at this. It's the delivery from Trippier, Matt, isn't it, from the right? And I guess they're looking at Isak's interference in this from the initial ball forward, because when it comes to him, it's bounced to him off West Ham players, come off Alvarez.
Yeah, I think it's from the start, because he looks, I don't know whether it's his arm, I don't know if it's his upper body that is offside right from the first kick, but his ball's actually not going to him to start with. It's to the far side when Alvarez heads it back towards Isaac in the near post area. But I mean, whilst we check, it was a great touch and finish from him to finish the move off. But West Ham, if it is given, they'll be really gutted to concede from a set play when they are, they're really strong offensively and defensively. So disappointing on their part, but for all of possession,
he's given the goal. He has given the goal. Andrew Madley has advised Peter Banks that everything is legitimate, and that's why there is that big roar from the Newcastle United supporters, because before the hour it is now confirmed it's 1-1.
Well, West Ham were soaking up a lot of pressure there. Newcastle were dominating possession, creating good opportunities. They've just had a really good one from Dan Burn that was saved by Areola, so it has been coming, and now it's about both teams. Newcastle, are they going for it? West Ham, are they going to try and soak up a little bit more, or do they have to change it?
It's the first time ever that Alexander Isak for Newcastle has scored 3 Premier League goals in consecutive games. But with this strike here at London Stadium, he has now done that, and Newcastle have got it back to 1-1 after a spell of 10 minutes or so at the start of the second half where they were asking questions of West Ham United. And here they come again, Newcastle, down the left hand side with Dan Burn, who had that big chance just before Isak's goal, which Areola repelled.
They've got a real spring in their step now. You can see as soon as the ball went out for a throw, Trippier was running over, grabbed it, put it straight into play. They're off playing out on the left hand side, and Dan Burn want to throw him right next to the corner flag. Their tempo has upped dramatically.
And David Moyes is just reaching for a bottle of water at the moment, because his team are defending again here. Newcastle with the ball on the edge of the penalty area. The shot from the edge of the box from Guimaraes, it didn't have any power on it at all to trouble Areola, and it is out of play for a goal kick.
Yeah, West Ham now are going to be trying to soak up a little bit of possession themselves, try and calm it down. But you look at, even when now there's a goal kick for West Ham and there's 3 Newcastle players stood on the edge of the box, that shows that they are ready to go right from the off. As soon as they get the ball, they're on at them, trying to defensively push forward.
Here come West Ham down the left with Paquetá. The game's opening up now. Swept up towards Antonio, into the feet of Souček. Then wide it goes for Jared Bowen. West Ham have got 4 players in the middle. Bowen's cross, and Pope might have claimed it, but he got the shout from Cher, who was ahead of him, who said, "I'll take responsibility of this," and he heads it away for Newcastle.
I think what we've mentioned before the game about there's going to be goals in this. There's definitely going to be goals in this. It's going from end to end now.
Yeah, it's wide open now, this game, and really for the neutral, this is exactly what you want. 1-1 between West Ham and Newcastle here on 5 Live Sports Extra, and Newcastle now coming at West Ham again over on that far left-hand side. It's Anderson who's trying to create a little bit of space for himself. There are others joining in inside the penalty area. Dan Burn has raced forwards. Isak's in the box as well, as is Tonali. It's now in the centre of the pitch with Guimaraes, who's clipped it up towards Trippier. Trippier across goal. Isak taps it in. He's got another one, Isak. 2 really quick goals, and Newcastle have turned this game around in the capital. Alexander Isak inside the 6-yard box, left alone. That is straightforward. Trippier with the assist, and West Ham, just like that, are behind. West Ham 1, Newcastle 2.
Sucker punch for West Ham, but dominating possession Newcastle, and it's 2 really good passes. The first one is from Tonali to Trippier. Paquetá's just switched off. Trippier's made that run in behind him, and it looks like he could have a touch, but he hits it first time. A delightful little cross into Isak into the middle of the pitch, middle of the goal, and finishes it easily. But it was Bruno passed into Trippier, and it's a really, really good cross from Trippier on first time. Delightful side-foot pass across goal, and the simplest of touches from Isak to finish.
2 goals in just a few minutes from Newcastle, and from Newcastle's number 14, Alexander Isak. And there is a small inquisition that has just taken place amongst some of those in claret and blue, because those West Ham United players, about 5 or 6 of them, gathered in their half of the pitch to say what has gone on here.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they defensively have been so sound. They've all got back, and even in that one instance, every single player is pretty much inside the 16-yard box. So it's not that they're not trying to do it. It was just one instant. Paquetá's just switched off, and Trippier's got behind him, and it was a delightful cross from him.
So all of a sudden, how this game has changed in terms of its complexion. Newcastle, who barely laid a glove on West Ham in the first 45 minutes, but now are leading 2-1 here at London Stadium. And suddenly the sound is a big old roar coming from our right-hand side from those travelling Geordies who are stood at the moment, some of them bare-chested in the away end to our right-hand side. And Newcastle in this second half, Matt Jarvis, have looked far more like the Newcastle that we've seen in recent weeks.
It's tempo. I think that's the biggest thing. You could see that they've been sent out early. Eddie Howe's obviously had a word with them at half-time, but they got sent out early, and everything's been quicker, sharper. Even just taking throw-ins, they pick the ball up, throw it in quicker, they're getting on with the game. And the energy levels is much, much better than the first half.
57 and 62, they're the minutes in which Isak has scored for Newcastle. We are 19 minutes into the second half now, and Newcastle, again, remember they won 5-1 here last season, have come from behind to lead West Ham United, and they have the ball deep inside West Ham's half. The cross is in towards Isak, who remembers on a hat-trick now. It's cleared away as far as Tonali, and Newcastle are just dominating things all of a sudden. West Ham are struggling to get close to them. Little interchange of play on this right-hand side between Almiron and Guimaraes, who's run himself into trouble, and West Ham have got it back with Paquetá, who's eager to make amends and to try and lift his team again. But Newcastle immediately retrieve the ball again.
They can't get out, West Ham. Newcastle, every time they do lose the ball, they win it back straight away, and it's really difficult for them to actually get hold of the ball.
Trippier's picked another brilliant pass out onto that far left-hand side. Back it comes to Isak, who's inside the box. And again on the far left, Newcastle with Anderson, who has got a bit of company in the form of Jared Bowen right up behind him. And Elliot Anderson has managed to keep possession for Newcastle, who keep things moving over, and from the left they've now got it on the right, and Trippier sending it in. Anderson waiting. He didn't get it hold of it properly, I don't think. Elliot Anderson, he's angry with himself. He claps his hands together. He recognises as well the ball from Trippier was good, but he's not able to do anything with it.
No, he should have done better. It was a great ball by Trippier. He's just looks like he's taking his eye off the ball there. Soufal maybe just put him off a little bit, but the possession, the opportunities now for Newcastle are starting to unfold, and West Ham, they just can't keep hold of the ball. They've given it away again in the middle of the pitch.
Yeah, Newcastle's intensity is really starting to get to the Hammers now. Newcastle are in their groove at the moment. Almiron 5 yards outside the box, Trippier on the right hand side. The Italian Tonali with the black hair comes short to retrieve it. Back with Almiron, and who is wanting the return pass from Guimaraes, but that's read by Emerson, who has got the ball up towards Alvarez. And West Ham could really do with a period where they get a bit of possession themselves. Alvarez is fouled. That was a tight call, but there was a bit too much hassling from Tonali on Alvarez. West Ham free kick.
Yeah, you don't want to be losing the ball there. Almiron would just nicked it off him and was free to shoot at Areola, but they need to settle down, West Ham. It's all been the last 5-10 minutes. They just didn't know what was going on. They have had no possession of the ball. They've had no one's been able to get hold of it and keep possession. Newcastle have been all over them. Every opportunity they've had to win the ball back, they've done it. Every second balls they've won, and they've just carried on. They've been camped in their half.
Peter Banks, the referee, has deemed that Miguel Almiron was time wasting there before West Ham took the free kick, delaying returning the ball. So he's been cautioned, Almiron, just a moment ago. And Michael Antonio trying to hold on to the ball on the edge of the penalty area with his feet. He feels that Trippier handballed it, but the referee has seen it that Antonio barged Trippier in the back first, so Newcastle have a free kick.
Yeah, Trippier's just trying to get his body in front of Antonio, because I don't think he would have won the battle if it wasn't the other way round, but he's just got himself in front of him, and Antonio's just gone through the back of him, and he's just grabbed hold of the ball. But you can hear the West Ham fans in uproar. How is that given?
Well, they need something to get them going again here, West Ham United, whether it is a moment of inspiration, whether it's a big tackle, whatever it might be, just something to lift the crowd and lift these players once more. We are at the midway point of the second half here on 5 Live Sports Extra. West Ham 1, Newcastle 2. Souček in the first half for West Ham. 2 goals from Alexander Isak, either side of the hour for Newcastle. And it is the Magpies suddenly who are soaring here. And it is West Ham in possession with Aguerd, who sends it forward, left-footed up towards Antonio, way out of his reach, controlled by Lascelles, and then Trippier sending it back in field for Fabian Schär.
Yeah, but this is where now this season West Ham, they can go to the bench and think, right, what changes can we make? You know, Antonio's done so well up there, but second half he's not been able to be the same as effective. The balls up to him haven't been as good. There's not been as much support, and that's all down to Newcastle,
who won here last season. West Ham's home record actually recently in the Premier League is really good. They've only lost 3 of their last 13 at home in the league, and that was to Newcastle, to Liverpool and to Manchester City. So they make this a difficult place to come, but Newcastle, on the basis of the way this second half's going, seem to have West Ham's number though. Souček, the goal scorer for West Ham in the first half, with possession on the halfway line, with Soufal, his Czech international teammate, on the far right hand side, picking the ball up off him in towards Antonio, who has tumbled and was hoping the free kick was going to be awarded. It was right in front of the assistant referee, but there was no flag, there was no blow of the whistle from Peter Banks. So Newcastle with Isak continue down the left, and they have a throw on the halfway line.
Yeah, it's amazing the change from the first half to the second half, obviously for both teams. Newcastle in the intensity, the aggressiveness of going forward and trying to make that splitting pass, but the tempo of getting the ball back and recoveries. And then you look at West Ham, and first half everything was sticking. Antonio was making them runs, holding the ball up, bringing it into play. There was opportunities for them to break. This time they haven't been able to do anything. They've been camped. They've not been able to put 3 or 4 passes together. And now you look and think, right, David Moyes he's thinking about changes. He's thinking, who can I bring on, and what are they going to be able to do against this Newcastle side?
There's been 2 goals at the start of the second half at Molineux, by the way. Wolves 1, Aston Villa 1. Hwang Hee-chan for Wolves, Pau Torres with the equaliser for Aston Villa. And it is still Brighton 1, Liverpool 2 at the Amex. Arsenal against Manchester City, probably the headline act on this very, very good Sunday of football here on 5 Live and 5 Live Sports Extra. Commentary of all the games today on various sources as Guimaraes gives it to Isak, who tries to get it wide towards Anderson, who's going to get onto the loose pass from Sofal, who's given it away. Now Guimaraes, right hand side of the penalty area. It's Anderson who couldn't quite carry it with him. It got caught between his feet, Matt Jarvis, and West Ham clear. Yeah,
it was again a misplaced pass by West Ham, but defensively they weren't able to get back, and there was great opportunity for Bruno on the edge of the box. He had a time, he looked right. I think it's Almiron run past him. He had a look to shoot, but he decided to pass it inside to Anderson, but he just couldn't quite get it out from under his feet.
Well, West Ham, who have won themselves a free kick on the halfway line, gave themselves a chance to get the ball back. Emerson's free kick was absolutely wayward. It was miles off where it needed to be, but then Lucas Paquetá has sort of saved his blushes, really, because he's gone and got the ball back and won West Ham another free kick, and this one is about 10 yards inside Newcastle's half.
Yeah, I think Will Prowse is going to take this one. It's not close enough for a shot, but I think he's thinking, right, let's get the settle down, let's put the big boys up, let's set it up. We've got a training ground routine, what we can do, and it also looks like David Moyes has made a decision. He's got 2 subs lined up ready to come on, but I think they'll probably wait until after the free kick.
Yes, Mohamed Kudus and Said Benrahma, who are waiting to come on for West Ham United, who are 2-1 down, and we're in the final 18 minutes at London Stadium. Short free kick from Ward-Prowse. Sofal directly into the box. Out comes Pope, almost on the edge of his penalty area, and he catches it with those gleaming white gloves.
That's just what you want from your goalkeeper, to take the pressure off from a set piece. But for West Ham's perspective, it's really disappointing. You can't have your one opportunity to put the ball in the box and it go into the keeper's hands.
What is it, Matt, that Newcastle have done so well, do you think, in this second half that wasn't there in the first? Is it purely tempo?
It was definitely the tempo. It's West Ham are
hold that thought. Burns set it through. Isak for a hat-trick for Newcastle. Round the goalkeeper, hits the post, and then it's behind off a West Ham defender, Aguerd, for a corner. What a chance for Alexander Isak to have 3. He created it. He'd gone round Areola after a brilliant through ball. Completely cut West Ham apart, and he couldn't finish it, Isak. They do have a corner, Newcastle, but they potentially could have had all 3 points.
Probably should. He's 1-on-1. He's had a great first touch. He's decided to go round Areola instead of maybe hitting it first time or anything. Just cut his angle down to his left-hand side, and his shot is hit the post and then hit Aguerd to go out for a corner. But this is the difference between the first half and the second half. West Ham was closing them angles, making sure the gaps were so small, whereas there, the one pass has got through all the midfield, and Dan Burns able to turn.
Trippier's corner into the near post, punched away by Areola. There were a lot of bodies around him as well as he came and met the ball. It's back into West Ham's box again. Burn is there, chucking himself at it, and the touch is behind off Emerson, who was trying to marshal Dan Burn, which is no easy task when it's an aerial battle. And Newcastle will have another corner, and this one's on the near right-hand side, so right in front of those Newcastle supporters. And there's a big cheer for Kieran Trippier, who's coming over to take this set piece from the right-hand side, and there's a nice bit of applause coming his way as well. He's going to place this ball down, Kieran Trippier, and all that noise you can hear is the Newcastle United fans at the moment. Trippier just raising his left arm in the air to indicate who he wants where, and there has been a little personnel shift. Tonali's now gone into the box. Almiron's now hanging on the outsider as that Guimaraes. It's Trippier's corner towards that far post. Burn back across goal, headed away to the edge of the box. Guimaraes has then missed it, and Paquetá's tried to send it downfield for Antonio, who is chasing after it, but it was never really on for Michail Antonio. It was not a battle he was going to win, and it is back with Pope, the Newcastle keeper.
It's all Newcastle at the moment. They going back to what you were saying and what's the difference, tempo definitely, but also because of the way they've been playing, they've been keeping the ball, they've been working West Ham. Eventually West Ham are going to get tired. They're not going to track one runner, and that's what's happened. The space has opened up for Newcastle because someone's just not tracked one runner like Paquetá did at that one time with Trippier, and he's in. It's so hard to keep that momentum all game, to keep that the hard yards of sprinting back and chasing your runner. You switch off one time, and these players are so good that they can punish you.
Well, we mentioned those two West Ham players about 5 minutes ago who were waiting to come on, and finally they are going to get their moment. So it is a double West Ham change. Antonio and Souček are the two players coming off, and coming on for West Ham United, Mohamed Kudus, who is the £38.2 million summer signing from Ajax, the Ghanaian. So he is on, and also Said Benrahma as well, who has not scored a West Ham United goal since his penalty in the Europa Conference League final for the Hammers at the end of last season. So that's the two changes from West Ham.
They needed to change something. David Moyes, I've seen a little bit of Kudus so far since he's been at West Ham, and he is entertaining. The fans will like him. He's able to receive the ball, take players on. He's got pace and trickery, so it's something that if they can get him the ball, he could cause Newcastle some damage.
Here's Trippier, who has caused West Ham some damage this afternoon with his assist for that second goal for Alexander Isak, who has scored both Newcastle goals. And they are the ones who have the ball inside their own half, going from left to right in this second half. And we are into the 77th minute of this game, live on 5 Live Sports Extra. West Ham 1, Newcastle 2. And Kieran Trippier giving the ball back to Jamal Lascelles, who has seamlessly worked his way back into regular football again with Newcastle United, because of course his chances last season were so few and far between, because Eddie Howe simply didn't want to break up the partnership of Schär and Botman, but he's had to because of that injury to the latter.
No, he's done extremely well since he's come back in. He showed his professionalism, must have been training well, making sure that he's in tip-top shape to when called upon, and it shows.
What have West Ham got left in the locker? They need to click into a more attacking intent now, whereas at 1-0 they were very happy to absorb. But they've worked it nicely here to the left-hand side for Emerson, who's got it back. That's a neat little 1-2. Emerson on the edge of the box is tripped. West Ham have a free kick here. It's a couple of yards outside the box, left of centre, and immediately the name James Ward-Prowse comes into mind.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's a bit unfair. It's like a cheat mode when you play the computer game. Ward-Prowse, edge of the box, in a prime location for him to have a shot at goal. We've seen it so many times. He's so good on the ball, and his set piece delivery is excellent. So I've now put all of that confidence into him and see what he can do.
Sean Longstaff, who was the player who gave away the foul on Emerson, is back on his feet, but is clearly not happy that the foul has been given against him. And I'm just looking at the little screen that's in front of me here, and surprise, surprise, the camera has immediately gone for a straight up shot of the face of James Ward-Prowse and nothing else. He's got the ball in his arm, tucked underneath his left armpit, as if to say this is mine, and there is absolutely no chance anyone's taking it away from me, even though Benrahma is sort of assessing the scene himself in the hope that he might get the opportunity. He's not going to. It's definitely going to be Ward-Prowse. Peter Banks is marking out the 10 yards, the referee, in which Newcastle are going to have to form their wall behind that white line that he has distributed across the ground.
What a hell of a wall that is as well, though. Look at the size of that. You're going to have to be... Ward-Prowse is the only one that probably can do it, but you've got to get it over that wall with Dan Burning, Lascelles, Longstaff. You've got to get it up and then back down under that bar. It's right just outside the edge of the box, so it's a really good skill.
Unless he goes low. He might go low, Matt. James Ward-Prowse positioning that ball down. West Ham 1, Newcastle 2. 11 minutes of the game to play. There's a yellow card for Sean Longstaff, who has said one too many things to the referees, a member of that 4-man Newcastle wall. And what a moment this is for London Stadium. It feels like every single West Ham supporter in this ground is on their feet at the moment. A Ward-Prowse free kick just outside the penalty area with West Ham trailing. Ward-Prowse sets himself, gets it over the wall and puts it over the bar. And I think in Nick Pope's defence, the Newcastle goalkeeper, he had that covered.
Yes, he did. Yeah, it's, as I mentioned, the wall, they're so big. They all jumped as well. It makes it so difficult to get the ball up and down in such a short space of time. But even if it was on target, you're right, Nick Pope probably was able to get across and comfortably save it. But it shows that it's just fine margins. You get one opportunity to put the ball in the box, and West Ham, they could get back right into this game. So Newcastle, they need to continue to do what they've been doing with dominating possession and just moving West Ham United. That's been the biggest thing. They can't do that all game. They can't be chasing and running and going from side to side. At some point, someone is going to lose a runner, and that's where Newcastle have been so good the second half.
They've got the ball in their back line, West Ham at the moment, with Zuma, who has sent it back to his goalkeeper Areola. Were you slightly surprised, Matt, not to see James Ward-Prowse named in the England squad this week, given how good he's been for West Ham at the start of this season?
Yes, I was. I think, if anyone's playing in form and what they've done at the start of this season, he's right up there. You can't not see his goals and assists, and he's had a fantastic start to life at West Ham. So yeah, I was very surprised.
Here he is, Ward-Prowse, out towards Sofal on the far right hand side. In the last 10 minutes, West Ham are 2-1 down, and they led 1-0, remember, in this game through that first half goal from Thomas Souček. Here is Sofal, who is running infield, but it's on his left foot, and he didn't want it on his left foot, and his ball tells you he didn't want it on his left foot, because he has sent it wayward of all and through to Nick Pope, the Newcastle keeper.
Yeah, he's just come inside. Bowen stayed out on the flank, so he's running inside. He's trying to look for options, and there wasn't really. He was maybe looking for a bounce pass to get it back to come in, but in the end it was like a nothing cross just to try and get a ball into the box, and it went straight through.
Newcastle are preparing their first change of the afternoon. Jacob Murphy is about to be chucked into the action by Eddie Howe, so this is going to be Murphy's third substitute appearance in the Premier League this season. He is still yet to start a game for Newcastle in the Premier League in the current campaign, and it is the Paraguayan Miguel Almiron who is applauding the Newcastle fans, and he is the one who is coming off.
Well, what Jacob Murphy will bring is energy as well. Even if West Ham don't need it, he will be chasing fullback up and down, and he's got good quality. I actually played with Jacob when I was at Norwich, and you know his qualities.
So West Ham trying to engineer an opportunity to get themselves on level terms against Newcastle. Paquetá halfway inside Newcastle's half. The ball forward was stopped by Dan Burn, but only just, and it's come back to West Ham with Ward-Prowse, who's given it to Mohamed Kudus, and there is a bit of a buzz around this stadium when he gets the ball with those really bright green boots. Kudus, it's switched out to the right hand side for Sofal. His header across the 6-yard box, it's down into the ground and away by Cher, but it's back out to Sofal on the right, who's teed it up for Ward-Prowse, who's got it into the feet of Bowen down towards the byline. His cross is blocked, picked up again by Sofal, and his cross is behind for a West Ham corner.
It's their best spell of possession there from West Ham, and as you mentioned, Kudus, he's the player. He's looking to get into that number 10 role, just in behind the centre forward, just to try and that's Paquetá at the moment, but just to get on the ball, little turn, be able to get a shot away if he possibly can.
West Ham 1, Newcastle 2, live on 5 Live Sports Extra. 6 minutes to go of the 90. Here comes the West Ham corner from the right into the near post. Zuma was the intended target. He was beaten to it, and the ball is back with Sofal, who's pretty much on the halfway line as he clips one up deep towards the far post, looking for Gerd, who's still up there. It's bounced through to the left side for Emerson for West Ham. Now with the substitute Ben Rama for Paquetá, who's clipped it in, looking for Ben Rama, and it's bounced through to Nick Pope, the Newcastle keeper.
Yeah, it's well defended in the end, just shielded him off. But there's a really good spell of possession for West Ham. They were actually winning the ball back. If they've lost it, they were pinning Newcastle back into there, winning the corner and continuing to pressurise them, but just not quite getting that final ball into the box, or that final pass, that through ball.
I came, Matt Jarvis, with a quiz question for you today, but because the game has been so good, I've struggled to find a gap in which to ask you it, but I might try and squeeze it in just a moment. West Ham are 2-1 down at home to Newcastle United. The question is, do you remember, first of all, who you scored your first ever West Ham goal against? That's the first one for you. And then I was going to ask you a couple more, but if that one's stumping you, I'm not sure I should go any further.
I'm struggling to watch this game and try and remember.
Okay, that's fair enough. Here's Bowen for West Ham down the right-hand side. Kudus with the pullback, stopped by Lascelles, who has very casually cleared it away with his left boot, though West Ham are trying to pin Newcastle into the corner, and they've done enough so far at least to stop the clearance from Elliot Anderson, which has bounced out for a Newcastle throw. And now Callum Wilson's going to get some minutes for Newcastle, so this substitute will be well received by the Newcastle fans to our right. There's going to be no hat-trick for Alexander Isak, because the man who scored 2 goals this afternoon is the one who is making way for Wilson, who is back from that recent thigh problem.
Yeah, well, Isak can definitely be pleased with his performance. You see the first half he wasn't really getting much joy up the middle, so he came out to the left, but this second half he's gone back up top, and he's scored 2 great finishes for his 2 goals, and gets his round of applause as he comes off. But for West Ham, they'll know that Callum Wilson's record is so good, and so they'll be making sure that they're getting very tight to him and not letting that record continue.
I mean, he's only got 5 minutes and stoppage time to do something, Callum Wilson, but he tends to against West Ham, as you allude to, Matt. 12 goals in 13 appearances across his career, Callum Wilson, against West Ham United, and he is on into Newcastle's front line. But it is not Newcastle who ultimately need the next goal. It's West Ham United, who are 2-1 down inside the last few minutes, as Ben Rama wins the throw on this left-hand side. Trippier thinks it should go his way, but the last touch was off Kieran Trippier, right in front of Eddie Howe and David Moyes, who are on the edge of their 2 respective technical areas at the moment. David Moyes in his West Ham tracksuit, Eddie Howe in the all-black, and he with his arm outstretched at the moment as Shares sends it forward for Newcastle. Wilson is harassing, trying to force his way past Naya Faguer. There is no way past the Moroccan, whose clearance has only gone as far as Tonali, who has got the ball back for Newcastle, and now Jacob Murphy has it, and he's 10 yards outside the box. He's tried to push it through for Longstaff, cut out by Zuma, and cleared out of play for a Newcastle throw.
From a West Ham's point of view, I think the substitution made a difference. They've managed to get the ball, bit possession, create opportunities, but from a Newcastle, they still look comfortable. They're very much dropped off a little bit now, soaking up a bit more possession, but on the ball they're very capable of putting a string of passes together and creating opportunities, and they've got now Wilson on that will run in behind every opportunity that they get into that back line, and they can stretch the game. So it's going to be a very interesting last few minutes.
That throw from Kieran Trippier was a misplaced touch by Murphy. He's gone out of play for a West Ham throw in their left back area. Do you want me to tell you who you scored your first West Ham goal against?
Go for it.
So it was against Queen's Park Rangers.
Oh, I remember.
You won 2-1.
Yeah.
Do you remember who scored the other West Ham goal that day?
Oh, was it Coley?
It wasn't. It was Ricardo Vazte. But what I really wanted to ask you was that there was a Premier League record set in that particular game, and I just wondered if you knew what it was. And I didn't know what it was until I read it yesterday and saw that you'd scored a goal in that game.
I've either got 2 things. Was it for headed goals for West Ham?
It wasn't.
Okay.
So try the
was
other
it
one.
Yellow cards?
Yes, Matt. Excellent. It was the most yellow cards ever.
Not a good one
to one team in a Premier League game. And
I wasn't booked, by the way.
You weren't, but 8 of your teammates were, which was quite extraordinary.
Yeah, it was a quiet game.
So a match where you scored your first ever West Ham United goal, and that's not the memorable statistic from it. It's the booking.
I actually scored a header that game, so that should be memorable.
That's the headline right there, isn't it? Here come West Ham down the right-hand side, 2-1 down at home to Newcastle. Sofal, he's carried the ball ages. He's given it to Kudus. Low shot, 2-2. Brilliant finish. Mohamed Kudus has his first Premier League goal, and it's a stunner from the edge of the box. Low, beating Pope to his left-hand side, and with little over a minute to play, West Ham, with a little bit of sparkle from their new arrival, have equalised. West Ham 2, Newcastle 2.
Absolutely amazing strike from Kudus. That's what I say to you about what he brings, is that entertainment about he's got great feet, electric pace, but what he's done there is the ball's been fizzed into him from Sufal, and he's controlled it, but it's bounced up and he's hit it on like the half volley, and he's kept it low, and he's driven it into that near post, and it's a fantastic goal. He'll be absolutely delighted with that.
Scored a couple of goals in the Europa League but the Ghanaian has one in the Premier League now, and that is what £38 million gets you. He's looked dangerous since he's come on, and now he has made that threat into something tangible for West Ham.
Well, there's still time for a goal, and honestly, it could go either way here. You know, both teams have got chances, but you hear this atmosphere. It's everything that what West Ham fans were wanting from him. You know, he can dribble, he can shoot, he can cross. But he's done that in moments where you haven't had a lot of opportunities to get a shot away. He's got one, and it's low drive. He's kept it down, managed to keep his head, and fantastic goal from him.
Here he is again, the Ghanaian. He is instantly, you sense, a fan's favourite round these parts, just for his style of play, let alone the fact he's just scored a massive goal. And we are into 6 minutes of stoppage time, and here he is again, Kudus. He's done 2 spins on the ball. Everybody's on their feet now. Is this suddenly West Ham with momentum in these closing stages? This, Matt Jarvis, is going to be a brilliant final 6 minutes.
Well, it's definitely turned, hasn't it? You can hear the atmosphere. Everyone's willing him to get the ball. So here he is again, turning on that half turn.
And he's got support wide from Bowen, who's got the ball. He's running into the box. Jarrod Bowen! Oh, it's missed at the far post. What a chance to win it for West Ham United. Ben Rama was there, and the ball has gone underneath his boot, and I think it might have got a touch on the way through to deceive Ben Rama.
It has to, because I don't know how otherwise it hasn't gone in the back of the net. It's brilliant from Bowen. Does what he does on the right hand side, cuts inside. Oh, it's a fantastic save from Nick Pope. Really good, strong right hand, and it just away from Ben Rama, who literally was on the goal line.
They do have a corner, West Ham United, and my word, they have their tails up here. Ward-Prowse from the left-hand side, right-footed. Pope comes and he punches it away, but it's back on the left side. Ward-Prowse swings it in again. Pope with another punch, but not great conviction, and it's just pumped upfield by Guimaraes, and suddenly Newcastle United, from comfort, are experiencing chaos.
It's amazing what a goal does to a team. This is the complete role reversal. West Ham are dominating. They're camped in Newcastle's half. Everyone wants Kudus to get on the ball. You can see him every time the West Ham plays in the midfield, especially Ward-Prowse, trying to slide that ball into him. They've given the throw straight to him again.
The flag is up though. I think there is an offside in there, and that really is going to help Newcastle out a lot, getting that free kick, because for the last couple of minutes since that equaliser from Mohamed Kudus, they have had their backs to the wall against this rejuvenated Hammers team.
They need to get hold of the midfield, because Kudus is finding himself in acres of space, and that hasn't happened all game for a West Ham player. So Newcastle, Tonali, needs to get hold of him, make sure he's not having enough room to be able to get on the half turn, because as you said, he received it and did a Cruyff turn on his first touch. He then had another play, done another Cruyff turn, and he's able to do that, but then not just give the ball away. He's able to then, he passed it to Bowen, he passed it away, he gets himself in the box. It's a real live wire.
That's probably why Eddie Howe's made the change, because he's taken Anderson off and he's put Matt Targett on. So that is an indication that he's concerned, that he's trying to shut the shop up, essentially, Eddie Howe now, because West Ham have the bit between their teeth here, as Trippier, under a bit of pressure, does well to guide the ball back with his head to his goalkeeper Nick Pope. We've got 3 minutes of stoppage time left. We've had 3 minutes already, and really, Matt Jarvis, nobody in this stadium wants this game to end now.
No, definitely not. It's been real entertaining, really has. And it's just the change from two teams, first half in Newcastle to the second half, and then the same from West Ham.
Foul by Callum Wilson as Zuma went to jump and win the ball on the edge of his own penalty area. Wilson lent into him. West Ham have a free kick, and they are believing, the Hammers. They really do think now that even though there is only a couple of minutes to play, that they can go and win this game, and you could not have said that 5 minutes ago.
No, absolutely not. But the thing is, the Newcastle are probably thinking the same. I watched Nick Pope as soon as the goal went in. He sprinted, got the ball, and they were ready to kick off because they want to go and win the game.
West Ham, who have won their last 3 in all competitions. Newcastle, who are unbeaten in 6, 2-2. Here come West Ham. Bowen, right side of the box. Well watched, good piece of defending by Fabian Schär, who settled the situation down, but Bowen was desperately trying to get it back off him, and he has. He's given it to Ward-Prowse, who's lifted it in, and Pope, the Newcastle goalkeeper, has caught it.
Yeah, well, as we mentioned before, that hasn't happened for West Ham this second half. You see, they gave the ball away slightly, but then Bowen wins it back straight away. The constant pressure. It's amazing how much teams and players, you come under a little bit of pressure when you're so comfortable that it just changes.
Here's Callum Wilson battling with Zuma. Was he fouled? Free kick is going against Callum Wilson. And Newcastle thought they were going to have a chance to penetrate that West Ham defence there, but instead the Hammers have a free kick on the edge of their box.
Yeah, to be fair, I couldn't see which way that would go. If it was given for Newcastle, I'd have been like, okay, because they were both holding each other, both pulling each other, so West Ham be very pleased.
So 6 minutes of added time were indicated, and we are about to go into the 6th minute of added time, and West Ham have the ball at the moment in the centre circle, going from right to left, looking to win this game. They led 1-0, they were 2-1 down, they've got it back to 2-2, and in these final 60 seconds they are trying to harass to win it and retrieve it, but Newcastle have it with Murphy, and now on this right side is Tonali. First touch was a little heavy, he's managed to keep it in place, Sandro Tonali, and he's got a free kick here. Alvarez has landed on Tonali's left leg, and Newcastle are going to have a chance to send the ball into West Ham's box in these final few seconds.
I know, and Alvarez is pleading his innocence again. I think, he's trod on him. He's tried to reach through with his right foot towards the ball, but he's gone through Tonali's left leg. So it's actually quite a nasty one. But he's got away with it, no yellow card, but it's a great opportunity now for Trippier on this right-hand side to deliver a ball where they pretty much scored. Isaac scored his second goal from this area.
He, of course, is not on the pitch anymore, the man who scored the 2 Newcastle goals, but Callum Wilson is, and he's one of several who are lined up, this long line of black and white shirts on the edge of West Ham's penalty area for a Trippier free kick, halfway inside West Ham's half, just in from the touchline. We've played the 6 minutes of stoppage time. Trippier sent it in, big leap at the far post, which was from Lascelles initially, drops to the edge of the penalty area, hooks back in, Zuma heads it away. There was a foul by Guimaraes. West Ham have a free kick. In fact, it was Murphy who's been penalised, and that might well, Matt, be that.
Yeah, I think it was a high foot, I think, was the foul for, but Bowen's done really well. He's just run straight into diving at the ball to try and get it, but I think both teams are trying to get the win, which is really nice to see. Normally you see one team just sit off and try and defend to get a point, but both teams here are trying to get the 3 points.
All 3 games in the Premier League at the 2 o'clock kickoffs are all currently level. 2-2 between Brighton and Liverpool, 1-1 between Wolves and Villa, and 2-2 here at London Stadium between West Ham and Newcastle. And we've played more than the minimum of the 6 minutes of added time now. Zuma with the free kick forwards, and there is the full-time whistle. What a pulsating encounter at London Stadium, which West Ham led through Thomas Souček's goal inside the opening 10 minutes. They were pegged back by 2 very quick Alexander Isak strikes for Newcastle United either side of the hour, but off the bench to rescue a point, the Ghanaian Mohamed Kudus for West Ham United with a super strike late on, and it has finished Matt Jarvis. West Ham 2, Newcastle 2.
A sensational game of football for the neutral, it really was, and it just goes to show the so many changes that scoring 1 goal changes a team. Newcastle absolutely dominated for the first 10 minutes, and then West Ham had 1 attack, scored 1 goal, and it completely changed the game. And then you see the second half performance from Newcastle. They were so much sharper, so much quicker, and penetrating West Ham through the middle, all these little intricate passes, and you couldn't see a way back for West Ham at that point. They were camped in their own half, and then they make the substitutions, which made a huge difference to West Ham. And as you mentioned, Kudus, he's a real entertaining player, electric. He receives the ball on the half turn. Cruyff's 1 player, Cruyff's 2 player, and he's productive as well. It's not just his fancy footwork and then doesn't do anything. He really is. He's driving at players. His energy levels were high, and to be able to then have a really good first touch, he's bouncing up and hit it on the half volley with 3 or 4 players running out to him and put it into the near post for his first goal. Fantastic.
Such a crowd pleaser as well, isn't he? And I just wonder whether, with coming into the Premier League, it takes a little bit of time to get up to the rigours of it. There might have been 1 or 2 fitness concerns as well, but if they can get him playing, and David Moyes will want to get him into the starting 11 as soon as he can, he's going to be a difference maker for them this season.
He will, but David Moyes has, I suppose, got the luxury at the moment of playing in Europe, so he can put him into games like that. As you see, he's played a lot of his games in Europe, and he's played in the cups, and it's sort of dipping him in to make sure he knows the roles and responsibilities that he has in his squad, but also to, as you mentioned before, this starting 11 hasn't changed much. He likes a settled side, which he wasn't able to do last year. Now he's able to do that, but you can't keep this player out of the team for very long. He's showing such performance.
Let's just have a look at the Premier League table, because those other games have finished now. So it's finished 2-2 between Brighton and Liverpool. I think they might still be playing at Molineux. It's Wolves 1, Aston Villa 1.